Chapter 196. Wu Lixue had been looking forward to it for a long time. When she heard the man beside her bid, she raised the paddle in her hand. He bid 2 million? Did I hear it wrong? Wasn't it the base price of 5 million? Wu Lixue looked over anxiously and saw Yu Qianqiu leaning on the chair with his eyes closed. She immediately panicked and thought she heard it wrong. This was 2 million. She didn't have the money to accompany him, so she looked at her brother next door. The latter could not be said to not understand his younger sister's thoughts, so he nodded slightly at her. Wu Lixue heaved a sigh of relief and smiled like a flower. Unfortunately, no one saw it. Wu Sihai, who was in the dark room beside the stage, shook his head and smiled bitterly. Good. Buyer number 1 has bid 2 million. Is there anyone who wants to increase the price? Wu Tai immediately became excited and shouted to the audience. There was a slight chill in the audience, and they all looked at buyer number 1. They didn't know what this madman was up to. Every time he called out a price, it was different. Who would directly jump over the base price and add 500,000 on the first bid? Was he trying to cheat people again? The reaction of the audience stunned Wu Tai. He thought to himself, I won't let buyer number 1 win again, right? However, the reaction of the audience made him heave a sigh of relief. Someone shouted, too. 1 million. Before anyone else could speak, Yu Qianqiu shouted without even opening his eyes, 3 million. He had to get this item, so there's no need to be long-winded. Wu Lixue, the obedient child, was naturally very cooperative. She raised the paddle in her hand high again. The audience, which had just become lively, immediately quieted down. After a moment of silence, someone shouted, 3,100,000 for million. Yu Qianqiu still didn't open his eyes. Wu Lixue raised the paddle again. This time, the audience was silent for a long time. They were all guessing whether buyer number 1 really wanted to buy it, or was he trying to scam others. They didn't know which sect this person was from, but his wealth wasn't weak. Could he be from supporting Immortal Island? Yes, he was a disciple of supporting Immortal Island, but he didn't represent the island to bid. This was because the one representing supporting Immortal Island was none other than Dongfang Chang'o, who had been sent by Feng Xiangtian to deal with the dispute with Daoyuo Sect. Originally, this auction was represented by supporting Immortal Island's shop manager, Wan Yuan. However, after Dongfang Chang'o came, Wan Yuan was happy to give up this thankless task and respectfully gave the representative to Dongfang Chang'o. At this time, Dongfang Changyao was also guessing which sect the first buyer was from. Could it be the Myriad Demon Palace? Someone from 10,000 Demons also guessed that buyer number 1 was from supporting Immortal Island. Dongfang Chang'o thought about what Elder Mo of the Artifact Forging Pavilion had told him before he came, telling him to buy anything that could help him improve his artifact forging, and he could not help but feel a headache. Other items were fine, but Divine Craftsman Mo Rookie had the same surname as Elder Mo Rookie was the person that Elder Mo admired the most. If Elder Mo didn't bid for this item, Elder Mo would definitely hate him for life. Logically speaking, it was fine to use the sect's money to do a favor, but the key was that this mysterious buyer number 1 seemed to be making trouble again. If he spent a lot of money on this useless treasure, what would he do if there were other good things in the future? Elder Mo was naturally happy that he had bought it. The sect was willing to lend him such a thing for research. How would the sect master and the other elders look at him? Of course, Myriad Fragrance Garden's Elder Fei wouldn't say anything because he was the one who bought the wood spirit fluid earlier. He was buyer number 3. Buyer number 1 bids 4 million. Is there anyone else? Wu Tai looked around and felt a chill down his spine. He realized that as long as buyer number 1 intervened, the atmosphere of the auction would be a little off. The current price of the demon-revealing mirror was far from the Wu clan's bottom line, and it shouldn't be so deserted. It seemed like buyer number 1's destructive power was too great. Dongfang Chang'o thought about it and raised the number 3 plate. 4, 1 million, 5 million, Yu Qianqiu said indifferently. After Wu Lixue raised the sign, she was slightly stunned. This gentle sentence of 5 million reminded her of something. It seemed that since she was a child, the most money she had ever received from her family was only 500 upper-level spirit stones. She clearly remembered that time when she spread out the spirit stones on the bed and rolled on it. These spirit stones allowed her to spend a lot of time and buy a lot of things. Now that she raised the plate in her hand, 5 million was gone. How much would 500 high-grade spirit stones be piled up by 10,000 times? Now that she thought about it, she suddenly had an intuitive concept of 5 million. She immediately felt that the plate in her hand was heavy, and she slowly put it down after raising it. She secretly glanced at Yu Qianshou. This person is so rich. 1 million. Someone shouted before Dongfang Chang'eo could. This person was none other than the 10,000 demons' Qiu Wuyuan. Qiu Yin was delighted in his heart and thought, between buyer number 1 and buyer number 3, one of them must be from supporting Immortal Island. I will help you raise the price. He heard that supporting Immortal Island and the Great Luo Sect were in a mess, so he came over to watch the show. 6 million. Yu Qianshou raised the price indifferently. His tone didn't have any fluctuations, and he seemed very calm. Wu Lixue bit her lips and raised the plate before putting it down. She wasn't as excited as before, and she felt as though she was injected with stimulants when she heard the price. Raise again. Raise again. Wu Tai's excited eyes swept across the three of them. He wasn't panicking when there were 3 people raising the price, and he couldn't be bothered to shout anymore. He was waiting for the 3 of them to decide the winner, and his Wu clan would collect the money. 1 million. Dongfang Chang Ao let out a breath of relief after shouting this. This was his last bid, and if he couldn't buy it, he wouldn't do it anymore. It wasn't worth it for such an item to exceed 7 million, and it was useless for Elder Mo to blame him. After all, he would be the one reporting to the sect. 7 million. Yu Qianshou, who seemed to have fallen asleep, raised the price again. Wu Lixue forcefully stabilized his mind and raised the plate. This was already the highest bid so far. 1 million. Qiu Wuyuan raised the price again. Yu Qianshou's eyes widened abruptly. Damn it. Something isn't right. Someone is scamming me. There are 3 people bidding, and when I raise the price by 1 million, someone else will raise it by 100,000. When I raise it again, another person will raise it. If they really want to buy it, why must they follow behind me? Why can't the other 2 bid? Thinking of this, he purposely stopped shouting. He wanted to see if the other 2 would fight with each other. After waiting for a while, there was no response. Yu Qianshou straightened his back and turned around to size up Dongfang Chang Ao and Qiu Wuyuan. He sneered in his heart. Since they dare to scam me, none of them will have a good time in the following auctions. 5 out of the 10 items in the grand auction have been sold, and there are still 5 left. Hee hee. Today, I might as well do the Wu clan a big favor. The 2 of them immediately noticed that Yu Qianshou was looking at them with a gloomy gaze. Their hearts pounded, and they thought that Yu Qianshou's cultivation was higher than theirs. In fact, Dongfang Chang Ao was really wronged. 1 million was his last bid, and Qiu Wuyuan was the one who wanted to mess things up. However, Qiu Wuyuan wasn't any better. Seeing that the other 2 didn't respond after he shouted 1 million, he was stunned. Did I win the bid? Oh no, why did I spend more than 7 million to buy this thing back? 7,200,000. Yu Qianshou added 100,000, but it also helped Qiu Wuyuan out of his predicament. Wu Lixue's heart was pounding as he raised the paddle. He thought that Yu Qianshou must be out of money. Most of the others thought the same. Other than the first round, buyer number 1 only needed to raise the price in the other rounds. When had he ever failed? Obviously, he was out of money. Naturally, Qiu Wuyuan wouldn't continue bidding. Firstly, the buyer was probably out of money. It would be hard for him to report back after spending more than 7 million to buy this thing. Secondly, the other party's gaze was obviously a warning. Since he didn't want it anymore, there was no need to offend such an expert. However, Yu Qianshou obviously didn't appreciate his kindness. After Wu Tai regretfully announced that the demon-revealing mirror belonged to him, Yu Qianshou went backstage. Just as he was about to step onto the stage, he turned around and looked at Dongfang Chang Ao and Qiu Wuyuan meaningfully. However, the 2 of them didn't mind. Both of them were from the number 1 sects of the righteous and devil sections. Why would they be afraid of trouble? However, The two of them would find out later in the auction. In the cultivation world, not only supporting Immortals Island and 10,000 demons had rich people. Chapter 197. When he took out the 720 top-grade spirit stones, Yu Qianqiu still felt a little heartache. Although these were only a drop in the ocean compared to the amethyst palace that he had moved here, he still felt a little heartache. However, when he thought of Baisuzhen, he felt much calmer. At the same time, he had exchanged these spirit stones for some items, so he wasn't giving them to the Wu clan for free. Moreover, wasn't showing off his strength to the 4 major clans something he wanted to do? Furthermore, the degree of showing off was obviously far from shocking enough. If that was the case, then he would have to perform a one-man show for the rest of the auction. After he returned to his seat, Bai Zizong and the rest looked at him again. They didn't expect him to bring so much money with him. It should be known that most of the people here were representing their sects, which was different from him, who came alone. How many people in the cultivation world could take out so much money privately? The 6th round of the auction began as expected. A Wu clan's disciple carried an object covered with a red cloth and placed it on the table on the stage. When the red cloth was removed, there was a cage inside. He then lifted the cage and gently rotated the entire cage. After that, the cage was lifted, revealing a flower pot connected to the bottom. A blood-red herb appeared in front of everyone's eyes, and there were even small white flowers on it. The people who were observing carefully suddenly smelled a faint smell of blood, and they were all shocked. Yu Qianqiu was stunned. This thing looked familiar, and he suddenly remembered something. He had seen in the Dan Sect's pill recipe Jade archive. He couldn't help but exclaim, 7-star blood orchid. Bai Zizong and the rest were also stunned. He knew this thing? No one had seen this thing before, but it didn't mean that they hadn't heard of it. When they heard Yu Qianqiu's reminder, they all exclaimed, 7-star blood orchid. Wu Tai looked at Yu Qianqiu and smiled. Sir, you really have a good eye. This thing probably hasn't appeared in the cultivation world for thousands of years. I didn't expect you to recognize it as soon as it appeared. It is the 7-star blood orchid, which is very helpful for core bearing stage cultivators to break through to the nascent soul stage. It grows 1 leaf every year, and it takes 100 years for it to bloom and bear fruit. After another 100 years, it will bear 7 ripe blood fruits, each of which can help a person successfully break through to the nascent soul stage. Legend has it that with a good recipe, the whole mature blood orchid can be used to refine a pill that can extend one's lifespan. It is said that consuming a similar pill can increase one's lifespan by 50 years. I'm not sure if it's true or not, but I'm sure many people here have heard of this legend. Everyone was shocked. They didn't expect to come across such a treasure in this auction. Just like what Wu Tai said, it was the legend that could extend one's lifespan. The legend was the most tempting. It should be known that every sect had people who were reaching the end of their lifespans, and many of these people were elders of the various sections. If they could buy this 7-star blood orchid and win the hearts of those elders, it would definitely be a great merit. For a moment, the people from the righteous and devil sects were rubbing their palms together, looking like they were determined to get it. The people from Fuxian Island and the 10,000 demons were no exception. Dongfang Chang, Ao, and Qiu Weiyuan had the same idea. Both of them stared at the blood orchid without blinking. Some of the smaller sects were sighing. With their wealth, they naturally couldn't get such a treasure. Yu Qianqiu watched coldly from the side. Let's not talk about whether this thing can be used to refine a pill that can extend one's lifespan. Just based on this thing alone, I want it. You can't pass the auction. If you want to compete with me in terms of wealth, I'm afraid that Fuxian Island and the 10,000 demons are still far behind. Thinking of this, he sneered disdainfully. Oof. You all want to live longer. That's simply wishful thinking. What a blow. As soon as buyer number 1 spoke, everyone looked over. From his tone, it seemed that there was something wrong with this blood orchid. It should be known that he was the one who recognized it at first glance. Obviously, his eyesight was better than everyone else's. Qiu Weiyuan gave a look to the people around him. Immediately, someone shouted, Mister, what do you think? Why don't you say it and let everyone hear it? Someone answered, Yes. Everyone is sitting here bidding. It won't be good if you buy a fake. If you have any doubts, you can say it. I'm all ears. I didn't say that this blood orchid is fake. Yu Qianqiu replied coldly and didn't speak. It made a group of people feel uneasy. They didn't know if what he said was true. If it was fake, it would be too wasteful for everyone to spend a lot of money to buy it. After all, no one had seen this 7-star blood orchid. There was a lot of discussion below. Wu Sihai, who was in the dark room, frowned. Did I really make a mistake? According to the records on the ancient books collected by the Wu family, this should be the 7-star blood orchid. Wu Tai, who was on the stage, was a little embarrassed. Everyone was like this. How could this blood orchid be auctioned? Therefore, he bowed to Yu Qianqiu and said with a smile, Mister, you can say what you want to say. If it is really fake, my Wu family will immediately withdraw it and auction it with other treasures. We will never blame you. What's more, my Wu family doesn't want to give up this opportunity to broaden my horizons. Please enlighten me, mister. I said it before. I didn't say that this blood orchid is fake. You could just auction it. Yu Qianqiu said coldly. Wu Tai was dumbfounded. Why did you say that in the beginning? Now you say it again. How do you expect everyone to believe you? What's more, you called out the name of this blood orchid as soon as it appeared, which made everyone suspicious. Wu Liqing, who was frowning secretly, suddenly heard his grandfather's voice. He nodded slightly after listening to it. He turned his head and smiled at Yu Qianqiu. You're the only one who knows this blood orchid. You have to explain what you said at the beginning. Otherwise, how can this blood orchid be auctioned? Yu Qianqiu was too lazy to care. I will say whatever I want to say. Why do you care? Why should I explain to you? If you don't want to buy it, I could just take advantage of it. But since Wu Liqing had spoken, he felt a little embarrassed. His words had indeed affected the Wu family's auction. After pondering for a while, Yu Qianqiu nodded. He stood up and slowly walked to the stage. He circled around the blood orchid and looked at it. He touched it and even sniffed it with his nose. It matched the 7-star blood orchid recorded in the pill recipe Jade archive. He raised his head and looked down. This is indeed the 7-star blood orchid. There's no mistake about it. He then walked down the stage. Wait. Someone beside Xiao Yuan stood up and said, You said it was the 7-star blood orchid at the beginning. We all heard it. But just now, you said we were indulging in fantasy. What do you mean by that? Mister, please explain. Yu Qianqiu paused and looked at him. He said coldly, If you don't want to buy it, why should I explain it to you? That person was about to lose his temper, but Xiao Yuan held him back. Xiao Yuan shook his head and transmitted his voice to him. Don't act recklessly. I can't see through this person's cultivation. It's very likely that he's an expert at the final stage of the passing calamity stage. That person was stunned. He swallowed his words and sat down obediently. Yu Qianqiu snorted coldly. Just as he was about to leave, Wu Sihai walked out from backstage. He cupped his hands and said, Mister, please wait. This old man is the current head of the Wu family, Wu Sihai. I have something to ask. Mister, please give me some face and stay. Yu Qianqiu naturally couldn't put on airs in front of him. He stopped and cupped his hand in return. I don't dare. There's no harm in asking. I'll tell you everything I know. This young man is quite sensible. Wu Sihai nodded and said with a smile, Since Mister has confirmed that this is the 7-star blood orchid, I won't ask more about its authenticity. What I want to ask is also what everyone wants to ask. I'm also a little confused about what Mister said before. It said that when this blood orchid is refined into a panacea, it can prolong one's life by 50 years. I think everyone has heard of this legend. Why did Mister say that wanting to prolong one's life is a fantasy? Is this legend wrong? Please enlighten me, Mister. Chapter 198. Damn it. Talking too much brings trouble. Is there any difference between what you said and what they asked? It's nothing more than letting me eliminate the impact of this matter. Forget it. I'll clean up my own mess. Otherwise, I won't be welcomed by your Wu family in the future. Yu Qianqiu paused and did not answer him directly. Instead, he walked back to the blood orchid and looked at the flower. He said in a deep voice, I said that wanting to live a long life is whimsical. I don't mean anything else. I don't mean that this flower is fake, but there are other reasons. Wu Sihai followed and asked modestly, Please enlighten me, sir. Our Wu family is good at discerning. We really don't want to let go of this opportunity to learn. Yu Qianqiu nodded. He extended his hand into the orchid's leaves and gently stroked a small white flower. He said, "The seven-star blood orchid truly only blooms after 100 years, and it only bears a blood fruit after another 100 years. From what I can see, this blood orchid should have already bloomed and withered once. I presume that its owner didn't know the essentials of planting it, so he took out such a treasure to auction." As he said, he looked down and saw that everyone was listening attentively. He also had a little interest in showing off, so he continued, "After the seven-star blood orchid blooms and is placed in the night, the 7 white flowers will automatically correspond to the Big Dipper in the sky, just like a sunflower automatically corresponds to the sun. In addition, its color and the smell of blood are the origin of the name seven-star blood orchid. After the flower blooms for 100 years, it will bear 7 blood fruits in one night. When it is ripe, it will fall to the ground and melt as soon as it falls. It can't be collected unless it's made of metal. Often people who don't understand will find that the blood orchid that has been planted for 100 years is about to bear fruit the next day. How can the flowers suddenly disappear? This is because the blood fruits have been digested when they fall to the ground and become invisible. If you put a metal under the flower in advance, you could get all the blood fruits that fall." After listening, Wu Sihai was suddenly in awe. He only knew the appearance of the blood orchid from ancient books. It would correspond to the vision of the 7 stars at night. It was through this method that he concluded that this was the real 7-star blood orchid. He didn't expect that there was such a care in planting it. If no one told him, who could know the mystery? After all, not everyone had the opportunity to plant the blood orchid. Everyone below the stage listened attentively. Some people softly said, "Oh," while others secretly nodded, looking as if they had suddenly understood. So that's how it is. Below, Wu Lishue's eyes were filled with little stars. This person was so amazing that even her grandfather admired him. Bai Zizong and the other 3 didn't expect this guy to know these things. They really couldn't tell. What the crowd didn't know was that the seller was stomping his feet in frustration after hearing Yu Qianqiu's words. Just like what Yu Qianqiu had said, this flower really only bloomed once every 100 years. When it was time to bear fruit, he was overjoyed. Who knew that the flower that was still blooming that day? On the next day, not only did he not see the fruit, he could not even see the original flower anymore. This matter troubled him for a long time. He couldn't figure it out and even doubted whether it was the real blood orchid. That was why he decided to take advantage of this grand auction to sell it, so that he wouldn't feel sad when he saw it. Who knew that it was because of this reason? How could he not regret it? But now that it had been taken out for auction, it was impossible to withdraw it. The flower of this pot of blood orchid is only the size of a thumb. I think the time of blooming is less than 10 years. After 100 years, it will grow to the size of a cup of tea. At this time, it will be time to bear fruit. Pay attention to using gold tools to collect the blood fruit. Of course, everyone may think that I am alarmist. The whole blood orchid is used to refine the elixir. How can it be a fantasy to prolong one's life? Oh, but the problem lies in the refining. This elixir that can prolong one's life is not something that anyone can refine. Yu Qianqiu said faintly and said to Wu Sihai, "Are you satisfied with my explanation?" The people below were listening to the key point, but he didn't say anything. They couldn't help but look at Wu Sihai with expectant and fiery eyes, hoping that he could ask the number 1 buyer to reveal some more information. It wasn't every day that they had the opportunity to hear such precious remarks. Wu Sihai looked down and was stunned. Everyone's gaze was too hard to refuse. He was doing business with the people of the world. If he really ignored them, he was afraid that he would offend them. The people sitting here almost represented the forces of the righteous and evil Tao in the cultivation world. This was equivalent to the entire cultivation world begging him. This pressure made him feel a little too much. He couldn't help but smile awkwardly at Yu Qianqiu. "I see that everyone has the desire to listen more. If it is convenient for Mr., you might as well reveal more." Yeah. If it is convenient for Mr., you might as well reveal more. Everyone responded. For everyone, it was a pity to miss such an opportunity. Yu Qianqiu was too lazy to care about them. The key was to give face to Wu Sihai. He frowned and nodded. Since the Wu clan's clan master has spoken, I will be more long-winded. Wu Sihai quickly waved his hand. No, Mister's words are like pearls. I usually can't hear it. How can I be long-winded? Yeah. Everyone echoed again, and it was quite a bit of flattery. Damn it, why do I feel like I am teaching a student? Yu Qianqiu shook his head lightly and continued. The 7-star blood orchid can indeed be refined into elixirs that can prolong one's life. If the refinement of the elixir is successful, one elixir should be able to extend one's life by more than 50 years. Extending one's life by 50 years is only relative to the secular people. For cultivators, a good elixir is enough to extend their life by 100 years. But the most important thing is that this blood orchid is only the medicinal guide of this elixir, and it is indispensable. At the same time, the 7-star blood orchid corresponds to 7 kinds of elixirs. 2 of them are relatively easy to find: the 1,000-year-old ginseng and the 1,000-year-old lingzhi mushroom. I believe that it will not be difficult for any sect to find them. The most difficult to find is a rare natural treasure, which is also the main ingredient of this elixir. It is called the Adumbra flower. Together with the blood orchid, a total of 8 elixirs are required. Coupled with the correct elixir recipe, the elixir can be refined. This elixir is called the 7 Orifices Exquisite Elixir. Adumbra flower. So, it is the legendary 7 Orifices Exquisite Elixir. How can this be refined? There was an uproar below. They suddenly felt that refining this elixir was as difficult as ascending to heaven. Even if they could find the correct elixir recipe, where could they find the Adumbra flower? It would have been fine if they didn't figure it out, but once they figured it out, they realized that it was something that only existed in legends. It was too disappointing. To be able to say this much was already giving Wu Sihai a lot of face. Yu Qianqiu cupped his hands at Wu Sihai and walked down. After Wu Sihai heard this, he felt like he was in a dream. He cupped his hands at Yu Qianqiu and sighed at Wu Tai. Now that things have been clarified, let's continue the auction. After that, he shook his head and returned to the backstage. With this, the price of the 7-star blood orchid would not go up. Wu Lixue looked at Yu Qianqiu, who had returned to his seat. His face was full of admiration, hidden under the black cloth. Bai Zizong and the other 3 were even more curious about his background. It was definitely not easy to know such things. At least, they had never heard of it before. After everyone shook their heads and sighed, they began to guess the background of the first buyer. At first, they laughed at him for judging things based on the size of the object. Now, it seemed that he was the real expert. Maybe he would be able to pick up a treasure in the first round of the auction. On the stage, Wu Tai looked at the 7-star blood orchid and smiled bitterly. He originally thought that he could sell it for a good price, but now it seemed that it was still possible. He glanced at the crowd and said loudly, 7-star blood orchid, the starting price is 3 million upper-grade spirit stones. The highest bidder will get it. The minimum increment must not be less than 100,000 upper-grade spirit stones. Everyone, please bid. Chapter 199. Everyone looked at Yu Qianqiu at the same time. He was the one who said it, and he was the one who said it. Naturally, they wanted to see his reaction. After all, no one knew if it was true or false, and it was all his words. If he made a bid, it was likely that he was bluffing everyone. Yu Qianqiu closed his eyes to rest, and there was silence on the stage. Wu Tai, who was on the stage, sighed silently. A good deal was messed up by the number 1 buyer again. After letting their imaginations run wild, many of them suspected that Yu Qianqiu might really be out of money, and he might be messing things up on purpose. Thus, someone shouted, 3 million. When someone shouted, everyone came to a realization. Firstly, this 7-star blood orchid was unquestionable. Anyway, it was something that was bought to claim credit. As for what kind of flower or fruit it would bear, it didn't matter. Did he really expect to get a share of this 7 Orifices Exquisite Elixir? Who cares? As long as the elders of the faction were happy, it would be a great merit. 3,100,000. Someone immediately followed. 3,200,000. 3,500,000. For million. Suddenly, the shouts came one after another, and the price kept rising. On the stage, Wu Tai's bitter face gradually turned into a smile. Bai Zizong and the others looked at the indifferent Yu Qianqiu and thought that he really ran out of money. Otherwise, he would inevitably interfere. Wu Lixue had the same thoughts as her brothers and immediately let out a sigh of relief. She held the plate in her hand casually and looked around to watch the bustling scene. At this moment, she recalled that the Wu clan would take a 20% commission from the auction. Naturally, she hoped that the price would be as high as possible. Her big eyes kept looking around. Listening to the rising price, Yu Qianqiu noticed that Wu Lixue's body was twisting around to watch the bustling scene. He opened his eyes and sized her up casually. From her completely different attitude, he roughly understood her thoughts. The phrase big breasts and no brains floated in his mind. Yu Qianqiu smiled and closed his eyes again. This is great. The more unexpected it is, the more shocking it will be. Only then would the four great families value him more. Money is a son of 8B*TCH. It is spent on the edge of a knife. I don't feel bad about it. He comforted himself again in his heart. Once the price passed 5 million, the continuous bidding suddenly decreased by half. The remaining people were probably from the top sects in the cultivation world. Dongfang Chong Ao of Fuxian Island and Xiao Wen of 10,000 Demons were also watching coldly from the sidelines. Both of them were determined to get the 7-star blood orchid. However, it seemed that there were still a lot of people bidding for it. At the same time, there were the number 1 cultivators of both the righteous and demonic sects, so they didn't join in the fun for the time being. Both of them were prepared to be the oriole behind the mantis stalking the cicada. However, he didn't know if the two of them were the orioles or if an eagle or other birds of prey would appear. When the price reached 8 million, there were less than 10 people who were still bidding. Wu Tai, the host of the auction, regained his confident smile and calmly watched everyone compete with each other. When the price exceeded the bottom line of 9 million, there were a few people left. The remaining 5 people took turns and raised the price to 10 million. Then 2 people stopped bidding. Perhaps this price had reached their bottom line. Perhaps they were considering conserving their strength for the remaining 4 treasures. It seemed that the latter was more likely. If they didn't even have 10 million upper-grade spirit stones, how could they buy the real good things? 13 million. Once this price was out, the situation of the 3 parties immediately became the dominant one. The whole place was silent. After a while, it was still the same. It seemed that the winner and the loser had been decided. Wu Tai shouted with satisfaction. This gentleman has bid 13 million upper-grade spirit stones. Is there anyone else who wants to increase the price? He didn't forget to glance at the number 1 buyer who had bid in every round. Everyone looked around and didn't forget to look at him. Seeing that the number 1 buyer seemed to be asleep, they thought to themselves, as expected, he has no money. Everyone was fooled by his generosity in the previous rounds. Many people silently calculated the total value of the 3 rounds of bidding and came to the conclusion that he didn't even have 10 million. They couldn't help but despise his act of pretending to be rich in their hearts. Only Bai Zizong and the rest, as well as the Wu clansmen who knew the truth, didn't think this way. Yu Qianqiu was different from the others. The others represented the financial resources of the various sects, but Yu Qianqiu represented his personal financial resources. How many people in the cultivation world could take out more than 8 million upper-grade spirit stones privately? Moreover, it was the highest-grade spirit stones. Yu Qianqiu sneered in his heart. The 2 people who could casually bid 6 to 7 million to tease me still haven't made a sound. I don't believe that they don't have money. This gentleman has bid 13 million upper-grade spirit stones. Is there anyone else who wants to increase the price? Wu Tai asked again. If no one responded to the price after 3 times, the 7-star blood orchid would be returned to its owner. 14 million. Just when everyone thought that the outcome was set, someone suddenly increased the price. It wasn't anyone else but Xiao Wuyuan of 10,000 Demons. Yu Qianqiu's heart moved. Here it comes. 14,100,000. The previous person increased the price by another 100,000, but it could be heard that his voice was a little reluctant. 15 million. Qiu Weiyuan increased the price again. That person was instantly speechless. The crowd couldn't help but click their tongues. There's always a higher mountain. The crowd quietened down again. Wu Tai looked at the crowd and said in a clear voice, "This person has bid 15 million. Is there anyone else who wants to increase the price?" 16 million. Dongfang Chang Ao made a move. He had no choice but to bid because many of the old consecrators in Fuxian Island's Heaven-Will Pavilion were extremely old and close to the end of their lifespans. They needed the 7-star blood orchid more than other sections. It didn't matter if it was as buyer number 1 said. Since this legendary item had appeared, he had to try his best to obtain it. Otherwise, it would be hard for him to face the elders of Fuxian Island when he returned. Yu Qianshou's eyes suddenly opened wide. Finally, he appeared. Qiu Weiyuan looked at Dongfang Chang Ao. He was almost certain that this person was the representative of Fuxian Island. He increased the price again and said, 17 million. 18 million. Dongfang Chang Ao increased the price again. He also started to suspect that the other party was from 10,000 demons. 19 million. Qiu Wen gritted his teeth and continued to chase. He had no choice. 10,000 demons might not have as many people close to the end of their lifespans as compared to Fuxian Island, but there were still a lot of them. 20 million. When Dongfang Chang Ao said this price, the audience was shocked. It was only the 6th treasure, and they were able to take out so much money. If these two people weren't from Fuxian Island and 10,000 demons, then they must have seen a ghost. Perhaps it was because the onlookers had a clear view of the situation. They immediately guessed the origin of these two people. Yu Qianshou was also muttering. Could these two be stars be from Fuxian Island and 10,000 demons? Fuxian Island. Damn it. Who cares? You dare cheat me? I don't care where you are from. 21 million. Qiu Weiyuan increased the price again. Actually, this blood orchid was already his bottom line at 20 million. However, when he thought that the other party was from Fuxian Island and 10,000 demons, he decided to increase the price no matter what. Even if the other party took it in the end, he had to make the other party pay more. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to take it lying down. 22 million. Dongfang Chang'o didn't think as much as Qiu Weiyuan. He only knew that he wouldn't give up unless the item was worth 25 million. Of course, Fuxian Island's strong financial strength was also an important reason for him to do this. 23 million. This was Qiu Weiyuan's last bid. After he finished shouting, he suddenly felt a lot more relaxed. Success or failure depended on this bid. He had already tried his best. He believed that the old ancestors of the Myriad Demons Palace wouldn't blame him if they found out. 24 million. Dongfang Chang Ao also made his last bid. If the other party increased the price to 2,500, he would give up. Going too far was as bad as not going far enough. Silence. The other person didn't speak anymore. Could it be that the winner had been decided? Everyone's heart was beating fast. They didn't expect this blood orchid to be sold at such a sky-high price. It seemed to be even higher than the price of the finale treasure in the previous grand auction. Fuxian Island and 10,000 demons were indeed rich and overbearing. Unexpected. Too unexpected. On the stage, Wu Tai's heart was also beating fast. Even Wu Sihai, who was in the dark room, didn't expect the 7-star blood orchid to be so valuable. It was far beyond everyone's expectations. Yu Qianshou, on the other hand, was pondering. From the looks of it, it wasn't a loss to buy it at such a high price. Presumably, after buying it, I would breed some and sell it. I would definitely be able to earn back my capital with interest. Good stuff, good stuff. Not bad, not bad. Seeing that no one was bidding anymore, Wu Tai said excitedly, 7-star blood orchid, buyer number 3 bids 24 million high-grade spirit stones. Anyone else? Chapter 200. The audience looked around, but it was obvious that the price had reached its limit, so no one made a sound. Dongfang Chang Ao secretly let out a sigh of relief. Although he bought it, the price was too high. Wu Tai suppressed his excitement and shouted again. 7-star blood orchid. Buyer number 3 bids 24 million high-grade spirit stones. Anyone else? The audience was very quiet, and no one made a bid. Seems like it's time for me to make a move. Yu Qianqiu stretched his back and let out a soft moan. He tilted his head slightly to Wu Lixue and said leisurely, 24. 1 million. This voice appeared very abruptly, and it was no less than a sudden clap of thunder in the quiet auction house. Swoosh, swoosh. Everyone's eyes were on buyer number 1. Wu Lixue's red lips were slightly opened under the black cloth, which was very alluring, but it was a pity that no one could see it. Her eyes were wide open, and she stared at the lazy man beside her. Her eyes were filled with disbelief, and she suspected that she was hallucinating. Yu Qianqiu smiled faintly and nodded to her. After getting the confirmation, Wu Lixue looked around like a thief, and she weakly raised a sign in her hand. If someone shouted beside her, she would definitely be so scared that the sign would fall from her hand. 24. 1 million. I just spent 24. 1 million high-grade spirit stones in one go. How many 500 high-grade spirit stones would that be? Wu Lixue felt that the arm was as heavy as 1,000 caddies, and her mind was a mess. Anyway, she couldn't calculate it clearly now. She tried hard to control the arm that was raised and slowly put it down. In fact, she really wanted to grab Yu Qianqiu and beat him up. Are you trying to scare me to death? After the shock, Bai Zizong and the other 3 looked at each other. This guy's a little too rich. In the dark room, Wu Sihai's eyes flickered. He really couldn't think of any force that could have more financial power than Fuxian Island and 10,000 demons. Could it really be a force in the cultivation world other than the Huaxia Empire? Wang! The crowd was in an uproar. Although Yu Qianqiu had added an additional 100,000 yuan, it was still beyond everyone's expectations. He was indeed the number 1 buyer. Wu Tai Ong said excitedly, buyer number 1 bids 24. 1 million. Is there anyone else who wants to increase the price? As he spoke, he looked at buyer number 3. Dongfang Chong Ao's face twitched. Who was the first buyer? After a moment of hesitation, he resolutely shouted, 25 million. There was no need for anyone to remind him. Yu Qianqiu looked at Wu Lixue and calmly said, 25. 1 million. The latter's body trembled. She raised the paddle in her hand with trembling hands and then quickly retracted it. She no longer had the excitement she had at the beginning of the auction. The price was simply too high, and it made her, the one who raised the paddle, feel the pressure. After Yu Qianqiu finished his bid, he turned around and gave buyer number 3 and Xiao Weiyuan a threatening glance. Both of them felt a chill in their hearts and felt that something was wrong. Another increase of 100,000 yuan? The crowd instantly booed. Everyone was now quite suspicious of what buyer number 1 said about the blood orchid. Since he said that it wasn't very useful, why did he bid such a high price? Wu Tai asked 3 times in a loud voice if anyone wanted to increase the price. Dongfang Chang'o didn't say anything. That buyer number 1 seemed to be targeting him. He didn't know when he had offended him. Could it be that he was from the 10,000 demons? Just like that, out of the 6 auction items, 4 of them fell into the hands of buyer number 1. When Yu Qianqiu went backstage and took out 2,510 top-grade spirit stones, Wu Sihai was completely speechless. This person's background wasn't ordinary. The 7-star blood orchid was already sold at a sky-high price. What treasure would the Wu clan auction in the 7th round? Everyone was very excited and was waiting to see. Even if they couldn't bid for it, it was also a good thing to be able to witness this grand occasion. Under everyone's gaze, a Wu clansman carried a clothes rack and stood it on the stage. Another clansman carried a tray that was covered with a red cloth. Subsequently, the person in front lifted the red cloth and took out a folded white shirt from the tray. He hung it on the clothes rack, and the 2 of them immediately retreated. A snow-white gown that was worn by a woman was hung there quietly. The entire gown was snow-white without any impurities. There wasn't anything special about it. Everyone was stunned. Could this be a treasure too? There was a lot of discussion. Wu Tai, who was on the stage, smiled and said to everyone, "Everyone, Can you see what's different about this gown? Wu Tai, when did your Wu clan's auction house change to selling clothes? Someone shouted from below and immediately caused everyone to burst into laughter. Wu Tai smiled and didn't answer. He walked to the snow-white gown and extended his hand to pick up a ribbon. It was the one-piece waist belt. He displayed the other side of the ribbon in front of everyone and said with a smile, "There are 2 words on it. Why doesn't everyone take a look at it?" The words were very small and couldn't be seen clearly. Everyone circulated their arts to take a closer look and saw the 2 ancient words "Little Snow" at the end of the ribbon in Wu Tai's hand. After taking a closer look, most of the people couldn't see anything, but some of them were frowning as though they recalled something. Suddenly, someone exclaimed, "It's Little Snow. This is Little Snow's gown? Who is Little Snow? What does she do? So what if it's her gown? Could it be more valuable than the 7-star blood orchid?" Everyone was at a loss. I didn't expect someone to recognize her. That's right, it's Little Snow. This is Little Snow's snow gauze gown. Wu Tai nodded and said with a smile. Someone shouted impatiently, "Wu Tai, don't talk in riddles. Quickly tell us if this Little Snow is a man or a woman, and what does she do? Could this gown really be some artifact?" "Ha! Of course Little Snow is a woman. Otherwise, why would she wear female clothing?" Wu Tai put down the ribbon in his hand and tidied up the white gown. After looking at it for a while, he shook his head and exclaimed, "Not many people know about Little Snow, but if I say this gown has something to do with divine craftsman Enrich, I believe everyone will be interested." "Ah, divine craftsman again? Could this Little Snow be the divine craftsman's woman?" Someone below the stage asked. Before Wu Tai could answer, someone replied, "Little Snow is not the divine craftsman's woman, but the divine craftsman's maid. Legend has it that she is a female cultivator who has reached the soul formation stage. She has been protecting the divine craftsman since ancient times." Soul formation stage cultivator? There really is a soul formation stage cultivator. A soul formation stage cultivator is someone else's maid? What kind of joke is this? Everyone had different reactions, but they were skeptical about the existence of a soul formation stage cultivator. That person shook his head and said, "I can't be sure if Little Snow is really a soul formation stage cultivator. These are all legends. If the gown on the stage is really the snow gauze gown, then it should be the treasure gown that divine craftsman Enrich made for Little Snow." Yu Qianqiu was silent. Others might not believe the existence of a soul formation stage cultivator, but he absolutely believed that such a terrifying person existed in the demon ghost region. Dongfang Chang Ao also didn't believe it at first, but during the trip to the demon ghost region, he had thoroughly experienced it. He didn't even see the person, but his divine sense swept past and heavily injured everyone present, including a few late-stage tribulation passing consecrators. He believed that if that person wanted to kill them, none of them could escape. After that, everyone from Fuxian Island came to the conclusion that that person was definitely a soul formation stage cultivator. Otherwise, with Ma Jugu's cultivation, she wouldn't have been so weak. Even now, Dongfang Chang Ao still felt a chill when he thought about it. There was always someone better out there. This saying was true. That day was too terrifying. Chapter 201. Wu Tai, can your Wu clan really confirm that this is Little Snow's snow gauze gown? The person who revealed Little Snow's origins asked. Wu Tai raised his palms and gestured for everyone to be quiet. He looked at the gown and sighed. "We can't be sure before we verify it, but after we verify it, I won't believe anyone who says it isn't the snow gauze gown. On the surface, this item really doesn't look much different from a woman's clothing. But in reality, it has many wondrous uses. Perhaps only a divine craftsman could refine such a wondrous treasure. Is the name of the divine craftsman Enrich on it?" Someone below the stage shouted. Wu Tai shook his head, "No." The person who revealed Little Snow's origin smiled. "If it really is the snow gauze gown, then the name Enrich on it is probably fake. Rumor has it that this item is one of the few divine craftsmen who didn't leave their name on it." "Why? Isn't it said that divine craftsmen would leave their name on the treasures they refine?" That person asked. The former person smiled again. everything has an exception. Rumor has it that Little Snow is a divine craftsman's maid and a soul formation cultivator. If her clothes have the divine craftsman's name on it, then the two of them aren't just master and servant, but Tao companions. Think about it. How could a divine craftsman leave his name on a woman's clothing? And rumor has it that this snow gauze gown is one of the treasures that the divine craftsman didn't leave his name on. There's also a rumor that the divine craftsman, on a whim, made 4 treasures for Little Snow at once. These 4 treasures didn't leave the name Immerse on them, but instead left Little Snow's name. I don't know if that's true or not. Another person said doubtfully, "It's just a woman's clothing. How powerful can it be?" Elder Wu, just what kind of treasure is this? This snow gauze gown is indeed incomparably mystical. It's truly a work of art. No wonder it's the work of a divine craftsman. Wu Tai exclaimed in admiration. My Wu clan did experiments according to the effects of the legendary snow gauze shirt, and we discovered that it's exactly the same as in the legends. It's able to repel dust, smoke, water, and fire, and no matter what temperature it's worn, it's able to maintain the coolness and ventilation of the body, causing people to be neither cold nor hot and extremely comfortable. For us cultivators, its greatest effect is still its defensive function. After infusing it with true essence, it can produce a protective light shield that can withstand a full blow from a cultivator in the middle stage of the crossing tribulation stage. Of course, this is under the condition that magic treasures are not used and multiple attacks are avoided. Apart from that, only cultivators at the end of the tribulation transcendent stage will be able to break through the defense of this treasure. It was even stronger than magic treasures like the Vajra bracelet, even though such a defense couldn't be considered to be very good, and it was even inferior to ordinary high-grade defensive magic treasures. The various miraculous effects it possessed were sufficient to allow it to step into the ranks of high-grade magic treasures. The value of this snow gauze gown is probably due to its miraculous effects. Everyone clicked their tongues in wonder. A piece of clothing could actually have so many magical effects. The divine craftsman really deserved his reputation. Unfortunately, it was a piece of clothing for women. Most men couldn't wear it. Thinking like this caused everyone to have a headache. It seemed like the legendary divine craftsman didn't do proper work. So why did they refine some useless magic treasures? The demon revealing mirror before them was the same. Being able to be proficient in such a strange and obscene Tao, their attainments in equipment refinement could be easily imagined. If it was used properly, then how great of a treasure would it be to refine? Yu Qianqiu didn't think so. Hearing Wu Tai say that the clothing had so many functions, even better than the best air conditioner in his previous world, his eyes lit up. His sister and Chu Ping both like to wear white. If he bought it, it would be perfect for them. Damn, didn't the legendary divine craftsman say that he could make spirit treasures? Why does he have to be so sentimental? Someone scolded. Many people laughed along. Anyway, they definitely couldn't afford this thing now. They just wanted to join in the fun. So someone shouted, "Is there any disciple of the Moon Clan here? Why don't you buy it for Fairy Chionghua? I think it'll be perfect for her." Then there was another round of laughter. "Hey, you can't say that." Wu Tai waved his hand and sternly said to everyone, "I won't hide it from you all." That gentleman said that the divine craftsman made 4 treasures for Xiao Shui on a whim. They're the treasures that will be auctioned in the last 4 rounds. Snow Luo gown is one of them. The other 3 will be displayed one by one in the next 3 rounds. Although they can't be compared to top-grade Dharma treasures, they were made by the divine craftsman casually. They can't be compared to spirit treasures carefully made by him. What? Cloud-chasing hairpin, Qi Yun handkerchief, and snow-long damask are all here? The person who revealed Xiao Shui's identity stood up and asked, "Since the 4 items are here, why is the Wu Clan auction house selling them separately?" "Yes, take them out together for everyone to see." The scene was a bit chaotic. Some people also joined in the commotion. Wu Tai wanted to slap himself. Wasn't he just asking for trouble? Selling the 4 treasures separately was obviously to sell them at a good price. The snow gauze gown which was like the demon-revealing mirror, was a useless Dharma treasure, so it was specially arranged to be sold here. He hoped to use the reputation of the divine craftsman to create the same effect as the demon-revealing mirror. Plus, the snow gauze gown was of a higher level than the demon-revealing mirror and was more practical. It should be able to sell for a good price. Everyone be quiet, everyone. Let's auction them one by one. We will definitely let everyone see the treasures in the end. Don't worry. Wu Tai waved his hand from a stage. In the dark room, Wu Si-hai frowned. Even if the Wu clan wants to make money, you don't have to sell the whole set of Dharma treasures. Isn't this a scam? If you want to sell it, just take it out and sell it all together, someone shouted. Then, someone followed suit and shouted, yeah, take it out and sell it as a set. There must be representatives from the supporting Immortal Island and the 10,000 demons here. Is the Wu clan afraid that they can't afford it? There were more and more jeers, and it was going to get out of control if this carried on. Yu Qianqiu smiled and said to Wu Liqing, I also feel that it is better for the Wu clan to sell the 4 items together. If this continues, it will be the Wu clan against the entire cultivation world. Wu Liqing remained silent. The clan head would naturally deal with it. TSK. Everyone quiet down. You're so noisy. Qiu Wen from the 10,000 demons roared and suddenly tore off his black clothes, revealing his true appearance. He shouted to the surroundings, I am Qiu Yuan from the 10,000 demons. Everyone, if you have any theories, come and talk to me. Qiu Yuan stood up, and the 4 people beside him stood up too. They tore off their black clothes and revealed their true appearance. They looked around with cold eyes and intimidated everyone. Someone whispered, It's the 4 generals of the Mo clan. Air. Those who followed the crowd were instantly silenced. They all sat down obediently. Who in the cultivation world didn't know about the 10,000 demons? How many of them didn't know about Qiu Yuan? This old man was an ambitious and ruthless demonic cultivator. He did everything according to his whims. When he was angry, he would kill without batting an eye. His calamity middle stage cultivation was especially terrifying. Who among the people who were jeering just now was his match? Even if they were all added up, they wouldn't be enough for him to kill. Moreover, a true expert wouldn't cause trouble like a hoodlum under normal circumstances. Someone said that it was better to offend the sect leader of the supporting Immortal Island than to offend such a person. Although Feng Xiangtian was more powerful, he had the title of a righteous person. He was more or less reasonable, so there was still a chance for him to live. Offending Qiu Yuan was simply courting death. Moreover, the famous 4 generals of the Mo clan was here too. None of them were easy to deal with. Qiu Yuan widened his eyes and looked around. It was noisy just now, but now it was completely quiet. Yu Qianqiu was stunned when he saw it was him. What was this guy doing here instead of staying in the 100 Flowers Valley? He looked around and could not help but chuckle. The evil name of the demonic cultivators is indeed very destructive. Once the name is announced, even Elder Wu's throat will be broken from shouting. In such a quiet place, there was actually someone talking and laughing in front of Qiu Yuan. Everyone could not help but look at buyer number 1 in a new light. They were all guessing his identity. Qiu Yuan naturally heard it as well. Seeing that it was him, he frowned and paused for a moment. He didn't say anything and instead shouted towards the stage. Brother Wu, it's already like this. Why are you still hiding in the dark room? Please come out and talk. The brother he was talking about was obviously Wu Si-hai. Otherwise, he would not be called a brother. Wu Si-hai was the master of the Wu clan, one of the 4 major clans, so Qiu Yuan's tone was still considered polite. Wu Si-hai walked out from behind the curtain and glared at Wu Tai. Then, he cupped his hands towards Qiu Yuan and said, Brother Qiu, long time no see. What can I do for you? Qiu Yuan blew his beard and stared at him. Your Wu clan is really unscrupulous. You actually sold the set of 4 transcendent artifacts separately. I think it's better to auction them all together. Wu Si-hai smiled faintly and did not beat around the bush. He said directly, the base price of the snow gown is 8 million superior grade spiritual stones. The base price of the snow long silk is 10 million superior grade spiritual stones. The base price of a Qiyun handkerchief is 13 million superior grade spiritual stones. The base price of the cloud-chasing hairpin is 15 million superior grade spiritual stones. The total is 46 million superior grade spiritual stones. Brother Chio, it's not a problem to sell all 4 transcendent artifacts together, but the problem is how many sects have the financial resources of the 10,000 demons to bid for such a high price? Putting aside my Wu clan, this is a loss for the seller and other buyers. Even if I agree to it, others will not agree to it. Therefore, it's better to sell them separately. Qiu Weiyuan knitted his brows. He knew that Wu Sihai was speaking the truth, but Qiu Weiyuan wanted to take advantage of the myriad demons' temple's financial resources. Otherwise, he wouldn't have the good intention to stand up for the Wu clan. He didn't reply to Wu Sihai and suddenly turned to buyer number 3 and sneered. Dongfang Chan Ao, you have been hiding at the side and watching the show for so long. Isn't it time to show your face? Dongfang Chan Ao. Supporting Immortal Island's Cultivation Pavilion's elder, Dongfang Chan Ao, was also here. Everyone looked over at the same time. When Qiu Yuan suspected that buyer number 1 and buyer number 3 were from supporting Immortal Island, he started to observe carefully. Buyer number 1's cultivation was unfathomable, and he couldn't tell who he was. As for buyer number 3, he felt that he was very familiar. Qiu Yuan thought for a moment and knew that he must be Dongfang Chan Ao. As the two of them had dealt with each other more than once or twice, they were very familiar with each other. Dongfang Chan Ao snorted coldly. He stood up and removed the black cloak on his body, revealing his true appearance as he surveyed the surroundings. He cupped his hands towards Wu Sihai, who was on the stage, and his eyes met with his old enemy, Qiu Wu Yuan. The two people beside him also revealed their true appearance. Yu Qianqiu took a glance and knew that these two people were also the 2 Tribulation Crossing elders of supporting Immortal Island's Cultivation Pavilion. Dongfang Chan Ao, what do you think about the suggestion to auction these 4 items together? Qiu Wu Yuan asked. Dongfang Chan Ao said expressionlessly, if others don't have any objections, I naturally don't either. Actually, with supporting Immortal Island's financial resources, of course, he hoped that they would be auctioned together. This way he could bid freely. Even if he didn't get it, it would be because he didn't bring enough money. When he returned, the sect wouldn't blame him. However, his identity was different from Qiu Wu Yuan's. Qiu Wu Yuan was from the Diabolism, while he was from the Righteous Tao. Naturally, he couldn't say it out loud for his own selfish reasons. Hypocrite, Qiu Wu Yuan said disdainfully. He looked back at the front row and cupped his fists. May I know who buyer number 1 is? Can I have a look at your true appearance? Everyone looked up at the same time. It seemed that they wanted to see who this rich and imposing buyer number 1 was. Wu Sihai and Bai Zitsong, who were on the stage, knew that he was a disciple of supporting Immortal Island. When they thought about the scene of him bidding against Dongfang Chan Ao just now, they wondered what would happen if he revealed his true appearance. All of a sudden, their expressions became strange. Damn it, the Diabolism is the Diabolism. They only know how to cause trouble. I still want to use the name of supporting Immortal Island for a few more years. Qiu Wu Yuan, why did you drag me into this? If Dongfang Chan Ao and the others saw me, I wouldn't be able to explain myself even if I had 10 mouths. Yu Qianqiu cursed in his heart, but he said, I don't like to show my face in public. Don't drag me into your business. I'll do whatever you want. After he said that, if Qiu Wu Yuan and the others didn't show their faces, or if there weren't so many people, it wouldn't have been a big deal. However, now that he showed the face of the 10,000 demons in front of everyone, the 4 generals of the MO family couldn't take it anymore. They wanted to make a move immediately. Qiu Yuan opened his arms and blocked them. He said telepathically, don't mess around. This person's cultivation is unfathomable. We aren't his match. It seems that the 10,000 demons' face isn't enough. Qiu Wu Yuan mocked himself. He smiled at Dongfang Chan Ao and said, Dongfang Chan Ao, everyone wants to see the true face of the first buyer. The 10,000 demons can't do it. Why don't you try supporting Immortal Island? Dongfang Chang Ao snorted. Naturally, he understood Qiu Wu Yuan's intentions. However, if he didn't do this, not only would he be showing weakness to the first buyer, but he would also be showing weakness to the 10,000 demons. Moreover, there were so many people watching. Just as he was hesitating, Yu Qianqiu spoke. He had to speak. This Qiu Wu Yuan had a stomach full of evil thoughts. It seemed that he wouldn't stop until he saw him. He had to think of a way to shut him up. Yu Qianqiu sneered and said in a deep voice, "A group of frogs at the bottom of a well. Do you really think that you're the best just because you're the best?" Qiu Wu Yuan, it seems that it was a mistake for me to punish supporting Immortal Island in the demon ghost domain a few years ago and let your 10,000 demons go. It's okay. I'll go to your 10,000 demons' place some other day and let you see as much as you want. As soon as he said this, Dongfang Chang, Ao, and Qiu Wu Yuan were shocked. They exclaimed in unison, "It's you." A few people in black suits also stood up. After that, the two of them looked at each other in dismay. They couldn't stop the shock on their faces. Others didn't know what Yu Qianqiu meant, but the two of them naturally knew what he meant. A few years ago, both of them were in the demon ghost domain. 5 elders of supporting Immortal Island who were in the final stage of passing tribulation were injured by someone. Dongfang Chang Ao had personally experienced it. How could he forget it? He was still thinking about it just now. As for Qiu Wu Yuan and the other Sect's people, Dongfang Chang Ao, who had just woken up from a coma, also heard something. There was actually a person who could injure so many experts of supporting Immortal Island by himself. After that, all the Sect guessed that there was a soul-forming expert hiding in the demon ghost domain. This was originally a secret between the higher-ups of the sections. Yu Qianqiu didn't know about it at that time. It was only when he heard Ferdinand talk about it later that he understood that Bai Changchun had made a move and shocked everyone. Now that the two of them heard such a thing from an outsider, it was a secret that most of the disciples in their sect didn't know. Thinking of this person's unfathomable cultivation, they suddenly felt a little creeped out. It was actually him. Chapter 202. The others were dumbfounded. Who was this buyer number 1? He actually said that he had punished supporting Xian Island, and Dongfang Chang Ao and Qiu Wu Yuan seemed to be afraid of this person. Oh my God, there is actually someone in this world that could make supporting Xian Island and 10,000 demons afraid of him. Everyone also felt apprehensive. Thinking of the demon domain that buyer number 1 had mentioned, everyone remembered another thing. There was a legend in the cultivation world that the top 3 sects of the righteous path and the devil path would send a group of people to the demon domain to fight every 5 years to see whether the righteous path or the devil path was stronger. Did they meet him at that time? Was that the time when supporting Xian Island was taught a lesson? Otherwise, who would go to the demon domain for no reason? The demon ghost domain trial that happened once every 5 years could not be hidden from others. Therefore, the top 3 sects of the righteous and demonic Tao had spread the news that they would compete in the demon ghost domain. This was reasonable in the eyes of the other sections. Wu Sihai, Bai Zizong, and the others were shocked. Could it be that the power behind Yu Qianqiu was so powerful that they had already taught supporting Xian Island a lesson? At this time, in the secret room behind everyone, a man in a black suit was murmuring, "Demon domain, supporting Xian Island, 10,000 demons, righteous Tao, and devil Tao." Could it be that something happened during the demon domain trial? Who is this buyer number 1? He can actually make the top 2 sects of the righteous Tao and devil Tao so afraid. It seems that we shouldn't stay here for long. Qiu Wu Yuan's face twitched uncontrollably when he heard buyer number 1 say that he wanted to take a stroll around the myriad demons' palace. He thought to himself, judging from your tone, I'm afraid you're not going to my myriad demons' palace just to take a stroll. He immediately smiled apologetically and said, Senior, you must be joking. My 10,000 demons is very simple, and there's really nothing to look at. If you don't want to show your face in public, naturally, no one will force you. No one will force you. Senior, please go ahead. Everyone was stunned again. They had never seen Qiu Wen of the 10,000 demons speak in such a tone. Wu Sihai and Bai Zizong were puzzled. Qiu Weiyuan called you Qianqiu Senior? Especially the way Wu Lixue looked at him. It was as if she was looking at a monster. Yes, I like hearing that. I don't like it when people force me. As long as no one provokes me, you guys can do whatever you want. After saying that, Yu Qianqiu leaned back in his chair. Yes, yes, yes. Qiu Wen smiled apologetically and almost broke out in cold sweat. After what happened today, he had lost a lot of face. However, there was nothing he could do about it. Challenging a soul formation stage expert was not enough. The scene quieted down again. Even the arrogant Fu, Xian Island, and the 10,000 demons sat down quietly. Wu Sihai looked down and frowned. Was the auction going to continue, or was it going to be like what Qiu Yuan said, where all 4 pieces of the set were auctioned together? After thinking for a while, he cupped his hands and said to everyone, since everyone wants to auction all 4 treasures together, the Wu clan can't make the decision. I have to discuss with the seller and see if the seller is willing. Please wait a moment. In fact, he had no choice. Selling them separately was definitely not as profitable as selling them together. However, both the top sects of the righteous and demon sects had expressed their intentions. Even if Yu Qianqiu was there to control the situation, it was still not good to offend them. However, if the seller didn't agree, then it was none of his business. After saying that, he went back to the backstage. Many people's minds started to spin. 5 ancient treasures had appeared in today's auction, and they were all the works of a divine smith. This was a little strange. They didn't know who the seller was. After a while, Wu Sihai came back. He cupped his hands and said to everyone, the seller has agreed to auction all 4 treasures together. After saying that, he waved his hand to the backstage. 3 Wu clan's disciples each carried an item out. There were no trays or red silk decorations. They were all directly carried out by hand. Wu Sihai couldn't do anything about this. The seller said he had something important to do and wanted the auction house to hurry up. Under normal circumstances, they wouldn't agree to such a request because it involved the auction house's profits. However, this time, they had to make an exception. After all, the seller had provided 5 items. He was really a big customer. He alone had made a lot of money for the Wu clan. The first Wu clan's disciple held up a black hairpin to show everyone. The second opened a white brocade handkerchief, and the third opened a long white silk. Wu Sihai introduced the items to everyone. This black hairpin is the cloud-chasing hairpin. This white handkerchief is the even cloud handkerchief. This long silk is the snow silk. As for the snow luo gown on the clothes rack, everyone already knows it. After a casual introduction, Wu Sihai said to everyone in a clear voice, I'm the one who said it first. The starting price of these 4 items is 46 million high-grade spirit stones. The highest bidder wins. The minimum increment must be no less than 1 million high-grade spirit stones. Everyone, please state your price. Everyone was startled. What was wrong with Wu Sihai? Why didn't he introduce the items? He was clearly just going through the motions. It wasn't even as detailed as Wu Tai's introduction. While everyone was still in a daze, Yu Qianqiu shouted, 46 million. Wu Lixue, who was standing at the side, raised the sign above his head with both hands. His heart was thumping nonstop as he silently counted how many 500 high-grade spirit stones he had to pay to relieve the pressure on himself. The crowd was very quiet. After waiting for a long time, no one made a bid. Everyone couldn't help but turn their attention to Dongfang Chong, Ao, and Qiu Yuan, who had revealed their true colors. But the 2 of them were submissive, as if they didn't know what was on their minds. In fact, if it was someone else who made a bid first, the 2 of them would definitely compete with each other. However, it was the first buyer who made a bid first. Needless to say, Dongfang Chong Ao had experienced it in the Demon Ghost region, so he didn't dare to compete with him. Qiu Yuan was even more afraid. If he really offended a guy in the soul-forming stage, he might really go to the 10,000 demons for a stroll. By then, who knows where the 10,000 demons would be? This kind of person was almost like a god. They really couldn't afford to offend him. If they couldn't offend him, they could at least hide from him, right? So, the 2 of them didn't say a word. In addition to the 2 of them, there were naturally representatives from the other 4 sections. They also knew in their hearts that they didn't get involved in the matter just now. Now, they even jumped out to compete with him. Wasn't that just looking for trouble? Even if he didn't do anything. What if? The consequences of this what if was very serious. Such a strange scene immediately attracted the attention of the other sections. Although they didn't know what was going on, even Fuxian Island and the 10,000 demons had obediently stepped aside. Was there any need to reason? Therefore, the scene was abnormally quiet. No one even shouted loudly. The situation of no one bidding appeared again. The person in the secret room was so angry that he clenched his fists tightly. After being messed with by the first buyer, he suffered a great loss. Wu Sihai, who was on the stage, waited for a long time but didn't announce the result. His eyes swept back and forth a few times and finally landed on Yu Qianqiu, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. His Wu family also suffered a great loss this time. Chapter 203. When it was confirmed that the auction item belonged to buyer number 1, Yu Qianqiu was stunned. Why didn't anyone bid for it? He thought for a while and understood that the soul formation stage experts were really awesome. They shocked the entire cultivation world without showing up. I have to work hard. After paying 4,600 peak-grade spirit stones, Yu Qianqiu returned to his seat and waited for the Wu clan to remove the auction hall's defenses. Afterward, everyone left and went to the backstage to retrieve their items. The items that they were retrieving were naturally the treasures that they had spent money to bid for. Backstage, Wu Sihai stared at the pile of top-grade spirit stones on the table and said helplessly, "Keep the top-grade spirit stones. Prepare the rest of the spirit stones for the seller." Clan head, Marshal Thunder walked over and smiled bitterly. "I'm afraid we can't keep them all. There are more than 10 million top-grade spirit stones in the warehouse. I'm afraid we have to take out some top-grade spirit stones to settle the seller's account." So much difference? Wu Sihai was shocked and frowned. "Can you transfer some spirit stones from other free auction houses immediately?" Marshal Thunder shook his head and said, "I'm afraid not. The turnover of spirit stones in the free auction house is quite fast. It is very difficult to transfer so much money at once. Even if we can transfer more than 10 million top-grade spirit stones at once, I'm afraid they will stop first. Those sellers who are preparing to auction the goods will not agree to us not taking out spirit stones as collateral." "I see." Wu Sihai paced around and pondered. He stopped in front of the pile of top-grade spirit stones and nodded. "Take out 2,000 top-grade spirit stones and follow me to the front desk for the auction." Marshal Thunder was shocked and quickly dissuaded. "Clan head, this is not good. Buyer number 1 just paid us the top-grade spirit stones. Isn't it a bit too? Besides, if these top-grade spirit stones are circulated, it will definitely shock the entire cultivation world." "It's fine. If buyer number 1 has any objections, ask him to look for me. I will handle it. As for whether the cultivation world is shocked or not, what does it have to do with our Wu clan? Our 4 great clans don't want to fight for the world's number 1. Wu Sihai laughed. He knew the details of the first buyer. Naturally, he was well aware of this. Seeing that the patriarch was so determined, Wu Lei had nothing to say. He said, "Yes," and ordered people to distribute the 2,000 top-grade spirit stones on 4 trays and cover them with red cloth. Then, for disciples carried the trays and followed Wu Sihai out. Wu Sihai came to the front of the stage and cupped his hands to everyone. Everyone, in view of the last 4 items being auctioned as a set, according to the usual practice of 10 grand auctions in previous years, only 7 have been completed this year. In order not to make an exception, my Wu family has specially taken out some of the rare items that we have recently obtained and divided them into 4 parts to be auctioned. We will use them to make up for the missing 3. I hope everyone can understand." Everyone looked curiously at the 4 trays covered with red cloth. Many people used their divine sense to scan them. Although they didn't find what was inside, they were shocked by the rich spiritual energy under the red cloth. What rare things were they? Everyone looked at the first buyer in the front row and sighed in their hearts. If it was really a good item, they were afraid that no one would dare to bid for it if he opened his mouth. Yu Qianqiu was also very baffled. What kind of item could actually have such rich spiritual energy? Wu Sihai sized up the audience and saw some clues from everyone's expression. He smiled slightly and thought, everyone don't worry. This time, the first buyer will definitely not intervene. I don't believe that he will use the top-grade spirit stones to buy the top-grade spirit stones. Then, he waved his hand at the 4 disciples at the side and said, "Open it." The 4 disciples respectfully accepted the order and removed the red cloth on the 4 trays on the table. A shiny purple appeared in front of everyone, and it was very eye-catching. Everyone below the stage was very puzzled. What is this thing? From the shape, why does it look a bit like a spirit stone? Yu Qianqiu, who was leaning on the chair, sat up straight. Others might not recognize it, but how could he not recognize it? This is obviously the top-grade spirit stone that I took out. The Wu family actually took out the top-grade spirit stone that I paid for at auction. Damn! Yu Qianqiu's mouth was so wide open that an egg could be stuffed in. Could this be the legendary top-grade spirit stone? Someone below the stage suddenly exclaimed. As soon as the statement was made, everyone suddenly came to a realization, and it instantly caused a huge reaction. They started to discuss, and were all doubtful. Is it really the top-grade spirit stone? It can't be. So the top-grade spirit stone really exists. That's right. Wu Sihai glanced at Yu Qianqiu and said with a smile, everyone didn't see it wrong. It is the legendary top-grade spirit stone, and it is definitely not fake. There are a total of 2,000 top-grade spirit stones here. Everyone, this is considered a rare item, right? The audience instantly went silent again. So what if the item is good? Once the first buyer spoke, it has nothing to do with us. Can't you see that everyone is sitting up straight and waiting for nothing? Wu Sihai faintly smiled. He then cupped his hands towards Yu Qianqiu and said, "Buyer no." 1. Do you think it's better to sell these 4 trays of 2,000 top-quality spirit stones all at once or in 4 batches? Yu Qianqiu's face kept twitching under the black cloth. Mother Kerr, you took advantage of me and still want me to express my opinion. Recalling that he had disrupted the auction, he paused and replied, the top-grade spirit stone is also a spirit stone. I am not interested in spirit stones. You can auction however you like. Anyway, I will not buy it. Don't drag me into this. Hearing this, everyone shook their heads and sighed. Not interested in spirit stones? What a rich man. But they were relieved. If he didn't intervene, everyone would have hope. Oh, Wu Sihai nodded and asked the crowd happily, what do you think? My Wu family has no opinion on auctioning them separately or together. They are all spirit stones. What's the point of dividing them? Let's just auction them together. Donfan Chang Ao, what do you think? Chiu Wei Yuan stood up and shouted. Since the first buyer did not intervene, he had nothing to worry about. Donfang Chang Ao said expressionlessly, as long as everyone has no opinion, I have no opinion too. Who has any opinion? Speak up. Chiu Wei Yuan looked around and shouted. Everyone was speechless. If Fuxian Island did not object, how could they have any opinion? Seeing that everyone was silent, Chiu Wu nodded and shouted, Brother Wu, since everyone has no opinion, let's auction them together. All right, then I won't say anything. Wu Sihai pointed at the items on the table and said loudly, everyone knows that 1 top-grade spirit stone is equivalent to 10,000 top-grade spirit stones. There are a total of 2,000 top-grade spirit stones here. If we auction them together, the base price will be 20 million top-grade spirit stones. The highest bidder will get it. As for the minimum increment, it must be no less than 1 million top-grade spirit stones. Everyone, please state your price. Buzz. The crowd suddenly became lively. Since the first buyer had said that he would not intervene, what else did they have to worry about? 21 million. 22 million. The price continued to rise. Damn it. Damn it. You old fox. Yu Qianqiu gritted his teeth and cursed Wu Sihai's ancestors in his heart. Suddenly, Chiu Yuan's voice sounded in Dongfang Chang Ao's ears. Dongfang, this top-grade spirit stone is indeed a good thing. But just like what the first buyer said, a top-grade spirit stone is still a spirit stone. If the price is too high, it will not benefit us. Our 2 families are the wealthiest here. I believe it will eventually fall into our hands. In my opinion, There's no need for us to fight to the death and let that old fox Wu Sihai take advantage of it. When the price reaches a certain level and no one else is bidding, why don't we let one of us get it, and we will split the price equally. 1,000 top-grade spirit stones each. What do you think? Dongfang Chang'o also replied, that's a good idea. But what if you don't want to admit it after you get it? That's easy. As long as you agree, I will swear an oath. Zhou Weiyuan said. Dongfang Chang'o only replied with one word. Okay. After the former made the oath, the righteous and the devil quickly came to an agreement. Chapter 204. There wasn't much suspense. In the end, the 2,000 best grade spirit stones were bought by Qiu Wen at a price of 40 million top-grade spirit stones. No one was surprised. After all, Qiu Weiyuan was the one who shouted the loudest when they were going to auction it together. Obviously, he had long wanted to buy it. However, the reaction of Fuxian Island surprised everyone. They were quite negative when they shouted the price. Normally, the amount of spiritual energy in a piece of supreme-grade spirit stone should be about the same as that of 10,000 high-grade spirit stones. Doubling the price was indeed a bit too much, but this thing was very rare. It was unknown how many years it had been since it appeared in the cultivation world. This kind of thing was definitely not available to ordinary disciples. Only those elders with high prestige in the sect were qualified to enjoy it. Ordinary magic treasures couldn't be shared with everyone. On the contrary, this thing was the most popular among the elders. After all, no matter which sect the elders were from, the supply of spirit stones was limited. No matter how much they had, they couldn't go too far. If they gave tens of thousands of top-grade spirit stones to each elder, even if they didn't say it, they would definitely have a lot of complaints in their hearts. But this thing was different. It couldn't be given to all disciples, could it? Big sects had a lot of disciples. Even if you split each top-grade spirit stone into several pieces, it still wouldn't be enough. Those who were qualified to enjoy it were naturally those with high prestige and high positions. Therefore, this thing was really the best item for bribery. Whoever brought it back would be guaranteed to gain both fame and fortune, and everyone would praise them. Yu Qianqiu, who was below the stage, was very angry. In the previous rounds of auction, he had taken out nearly 8,000 best-grade spirit stones, which was equivalent to nearly 80 million top-grade spirit stones. In this auction, the price had doubled. In other words, the best-grade spirit stones he had taken out were worth more than 150 million top-grade spirit stones. So much money had been earned by others. He was like an idiot. He had to suffer in silence. It would be a lie to say that he wasn't angry. Originally, he was thinking that he had disrupted the auction and felt a little guilty. Right now, the Wu clan had made a huge profit, and it was much better than the commission from the auction. It was likely that the rest of the supreme-grade spirit stones had fallen into the Wu clan's pocket. Wu Sihai didn't expect the price to be doubled. In this way, he felt a little sorry for Yu Qianqiu. It was like slapping Yu Qianqiu's face and treating him like an idiot. Although he was thinking about it, he didn't show anything wrong on his face. He calmly ended the grand auction and welcomed everyone to the other free auctions. After the auction was over, those who left were naturally the 4 buyers who had obtained their treasures. After each of them claimed their treasures with their tokens, Dongfang Chang, Ao, and Qiu Wen walked out of the auction house calmly, because they had already revealed themselves. Even if everyone knew that these 2 people had treasures and a huge amount of wealth, who would dare to rob them? As for the other buyers, the Wu clan arranged for them to enter the Wu clan through the secret passage. Then, they returned to their real bodies and quietly crossed the river to the Hat Island. No one knew who the second buyer was. As for Yu Qianqiu, naturally, after exiting the secret passage, he directly returned to the Jinka house in a huff. When Bai Zizong and the others returned to the Jinka house from the Hat Island, they all surrounded Yu Qianqiu and looked at him. They all knew that he was rich, but they didn't expect him to be so rich. Wu Lixue, on the other hand, tilted her beautiful head and kept looking at him. She was thinking about a question that she didn't know when she would be able to figure out. How could he be so rich? Yu Qianqiu leaned on a chair and rolled his eyes at them. He said unhappily, "Don't disturb me. I'm annoyed. They smiled and didn't say anything. Then, they heard a voice from outside. What are you annoyed about? Is it because of those supreme-grade spirit stones? Outside the garden, Wu Sihai walked in alone with a smile on his face. All the juniors hurriedly bowed to him. He waved his hand at them and looked at Yu Qianqiu, who was sitting motionlessly on the chair. The latter was angry because of him, so he wouldn't greet him. What? You're so angry that I took out the supreme-grade spirit stones that you paid for and auctioned them? Wu Sihai laughed. Yo! Yu Qianqiu stood up and rolled his eyes. It seems like you already knew it was me. No wonder you're so unscrupulous. What? That supreme-grade spirit stone is yours? Wu Liqing exclaimed. The others also looked at Yu Qianqiu in shock. How many secrets did this guy have? All right, this is not the place to talk. Yu Qianqiu and the rest of you, follow me to the Elder Conference Hall, Wu Sihai said with a serious face. He then added, Shui, stay here. Oh, Wu Lixue felt wronged. It couldn't be helped. That was the family rule. Women were not allowed to enter the Elder Conference Hall. They turned around and left. Suddenly, a certain someone pretended not to hear them. Wu Liqing walked over and pulled Yu Qianqiu's arm. Let's go. Let's go. What? Can you be more polite? Don't drag it, I have something to do. Yu Qianqiu struggled. Bai Zizong came over and clamped his other arm. Stop nagging. What can you do? Tan Fei and Jings were rolled up their sleeves and wanted to hug his leg. They wanted to carry him away. Wu Sihai turned around and smiled at the young people. He was happy for their friendship. I'll go by myself. Damn it. Why is the Wu clan like a den of thieves? Yu Qianqiu, who escaped from the clutches of the young people, said angrily, Wait a minute. I still have something that I haven't given to Wu Lixue. He took out a red and black object from his storage bag and gave it to Wu Lixue. It was the so-called vermilion bird egg that he bought with 300,000 top-grade spirit stones. Wu Lixue took it and hugged it in her arms. She peeked at her grandfather secretly. Wu Sihai frowned. Shui, what's going on? Wu Liqing quickly took over the topic and explained. After listening, he looked at Yu Qianqiu and didn't say anything else. If it was in the past, he would definitely scold his granddaughter for accepting 300,000 top-grade spirit stones. However, it was a different story for Yu Qianqiu. Moreover, 300,000 was just a drop in the ocean for him. With Wu Sihai leading the way, the group of 6 arrived at the back of the Wu clan. It was the Wu clan's ancestral hall, which was also the Wu clan's elders' meeting hall. Bai Zizong and the others also felt strange. Why would Wu Sihai bring an outsider like Yu Qianqiu to such a place? Yu Qianqiu looked around along the way. He didn't seem to care, but he was actually looking around carefully. He noticed that the surroundings were loose on the outside but tight on the inside. The security was very tight. It was worthy of being the Wu clan's important place. After entering the Wu clan's ancestral hall, Wu Sihai dismissed the irrelevant people and led them to the main hall. Yu Qianqiu immediately saw many memorial tablets on the wooden table in the middle. It was obvious that they were the memorial tablets of the Wu clan's deceased clansmen. He couldn't help but mumble, Why did this old man bring me here? Looking further up, there was a portrait hanging on the wall above the wooden table with many memorial tablets. The portrait was of an elegant old man wearing a plain robe. He was standing on a cliff with his hands behind his back. He was slightly tilting his body and looking at the stars in the sky. The old man's otherworldly and aloof aura was vividly displayed on the paper, especially the night scene depicted on the white paper in black ink. It was very admirable. The entire portrait was drawn very vividly, and it was obvious that a lot of effort was put into it. There were a few lines of small words at the corner of the portrait. Yu Qianqiu couldn't help but look at them carefully. Wu Sihai was the first to offer an incense stick, followed by Wu Liqing and the others. They respectfully knelt down and inserted the incense sticks into the incense burner. When Bai Zizong saw Yu Qianqiu looking around with a doubtful expression, he smiled and walked over with an incense stick. The main hall is the portrait of my ancestor. Brother Yu, why don't you offer an incense stick as a token of respect? However, He saw Yu Qianqiu staring at the portrait with his mouth wide open. What did he see? He was stunned by the few lines of words at the corner of the portrait. It was written as follows: "The wise sages often said, if the heavens have feelings, I was not confused back then. Now that I am older, I can understand some profound meaning after thinking about it. But it's too late. Deep regret. Hence, I left behind the portrait of the wise sage by Changchun for the future generations to admire." Tan Xiu's writing. Chapter 205. Oh my God! The old man in the painting is by Changchun? Are you kidding me? There's such a powerful guy in the four major clans. Is he the Bai Changchun that I know? He's a terrifying existence that could shake the entire Phantom region. You, Bai, brother Bai Changchun is your ancestor? Yu Qianqiu tried to control his emotions, but he still stuttered. Yes. Bai Zicong looked at the painting and asked doubtfully, "My ancestor has passed away for more than 2,000 years. Could it be that brother you has heard of my ancestor? Died for more than 2,000 years? So it's not the same person." That scared me to death. I was wondering, with such a terrifying guy around, the four major clans would be able to do whatever they want in the cultivation world. There's no need to keep such a low profile. Yu Qianqiu heaved a sigh of relief and wiped his forehead subconsciously. No. I just happen to know someone with the same name as your ancestor. He's still alive and well. By the way, who's Tan Xiu? Is he the ancestor of the Tan clan? He quickly changed the topic. He had no choice but to change the topic. Bai Changchun's reputation made people feel guilty. It was fine if they didn't know him, but they knew how terrifying he was. For example, at today's auction, he only vaguely borrowed his prestige, but he scared the number one sects of the righteous and demonic sects into silence. Amazing. Bai Zicong hesitated for a while. He didn't know if he should say it. He turned to look at Wu Sihai, who nodded in agreement. He smiled and said, "It's Tan Fei's ancestor. He's from the same generation as my ancestor." Ancestor Tan Fei was skilled in painting. He painted 4 similar paintings, and they're placed in the ancestral halls of the 4 major clans. Good painting, good painting. Since he's Brother Bai's ancestor, I'll offer some incense to show my respect. Yu Qianqiu smiled and took the incense from his hand. After lighting it on the incense table, he bowed 3 times on the cattail hassock and lit the incense. At the side, Wu Sihai looked at the portrait and then looked at Yu Qianqiu. He frowned. After Yu Qianqiu finished offering the incense, he suddenly said in a deep voice, "Yu Qianqiu, where is the person with the same name as the Bai family's ancestor?" Yu Qianqiu had just turned around, but his face stiffened when he heard that. He smiled awkwardly and said, "I can't remember it either. I think it was some barren land." "Old master, why are you asking this?" Wu Sihai's eyes flickered as he stared at him. Finally, he shifted his attention to the portrait and said leisurely, "The Bai family's ancestor was gifted by the heavens. He was a rogue cultivator. When he was over 200 years old, his cultivation reached the final stage of tribulation passing. His Xian skill was rare in the world, but he didn't learn it from others. He created it himself by misleading the heavenly Tao. With such talent, he should be famous in the cultivation world, but he didn't like to show off. Therefore, few people in the cultivation world know Bai Changchun's name. Even if there are people who know him, they're all defeated by him. Presumably, he wouldn't show off. Now he's gone. He's indeed a talent." Yu Qianqiu praised the portrait, but his heart was beating fast. Could this Bai Changchun really be the Bai Changchun from before? He scratched his head and asked, "Old master, what do you mean by telling me this?" Bai Zicong and the others also looked at Wu Sihai. They didn't know why he suddenly said this. "Yu Qianqiu, you must have heard of a rumor?" Wu Sihai asked. Yu Qianqiu was stunned and said, "What rumor?" "There's a rumor that the Tan, Jing, and Wu families originated from the Bai family. I can tell you clearly that this rumor is true. The ancestors of the 3 families were originally the followers of the Bai family's ancestor. They had always been by his side and listened to his orders. It could also be said that the ancestors of the 3 families were the disciples of the Bai family's ancestor. Unfortunately, the Bai family's ancestors' Xian skills were all comprehended from the heavenly Tao. It's different from the current cultivation world's method of increasing cultivation by accumulating spiritual chi over a long period of time. It could be said that it was a different path on the path of cultivation. It's not something that can be learned just because you want to learn it. He can show you the way, but in the end, it's still up to you to understand it. Once you understand it, your cultivation will advance by leaps and bounds. Unfortunately, no one in the three families, including the main Bai family, has this kind of understanding in the past 2,000 years. Wu Sihai shook his head and sighed. There's such a cultivation method. Yu Qianshou was speechless. He thought, could it be the same as the legendary enlightenment in his previous life? Once enlightened, one can ascend to the heavens? Wu Sihai nodded and sighed. When the Bai family's ancestor reached 300 years old, one day, he suddenly dismissed the three families. He asked us to establish our own sects in the cultivation world and support each other. He said that he suddenly had an epiphany and was going to cultivate in seclusion and not care about the world. The three families obeyed his order, but the cultivation world is a dog-eat-dog world. It's really difficult to establish a sect. Therefore, the Bai family's ancestor flew all over the world for a few days and secretly challenged the heads and top experts of the 10 major sects of the righteous and demonic sections. Within 3 moves, he forced them to swear a venomous oath to keep this secret. He also restricted their sects to not provoke the 4 major families for no reason during their lifetime. Because of this, the 4 major families got the opportunity to start developing, and that's how the 4 major families came to be today. Bai Zizong and the others heard this, and their faces were full of pride. The descendants benefited from the ancestors' methods. On the other hand, Yu Qianshou was shocked. The 10 major sects were full of hidden dragons and crouching tigers. The experts who cultivated in seclusion could not be estimated by outsiders. Moreover, it was inevitable that they would have some treasures in their hands. He had personally experienced Ong Kuang Tsung, but none of the experts from the 10 major sects of the righteous and demonic sects could last more than 3 moves against Bai Changchun. Oh my God, what kind of method is this? How powerful was he in the past? Yu Qianshou gulped and said, it's a pity that none of the 4 major families could inherit the Bai family's ancestors' Xian technique. What a pity, what a pity. It's easier said than done. Wu Sihai shook his head and said, it's because it's difficult. In order to maintain our current status, the 4 major families have no choice but to rely on spiritual energy to cultivate like other cultivators. Otherwise, the 4 major families would have disappeared long ago. Yu Qianshou sighed and suddenly said, old man, this is the secret of the 4 major families. Why are you telling an outsider like me? Because you said you know a person named Bai Changchun. I want to know where he is. Wu Sihai stared at him and said. Yu Qianshou smiled and said, I know of such a person. But you can't be thinking that he is the same person as the Bai family's ancestor, right? Do you really think someone can live for more than 2,000 years? The others also agreed with Yu Qianshou's words and looked at Wu Sihai doubtfully. It's very possible. Wu Sihai nodded seriously. Yu Qianshou's heart was thumping. He was almost sure that they were the same person. Otherwise, how could there be 2 people with the same name and surname? The probability of this was almost 0. However, he still put on a look of disbelief because he really did not want such a terrifying person to be used by others. Just thinking about it made him uncomfortable. Bai Zizong and the others also did not believe it. Wu Sihai sighed and said, when the 4 major families started to stabilize, the Bai family's ancestor gathered the 4 of them together and told them that he was very likely to break through to the legendary demigod stage. However, the Tao was ruthless. He needed to cut off all worldly ties and have no distractions in his heart. Only then could he concentrate on his cultivation. He also told the 4 of them to support each other from now on. He would no longer interfere with worldly affairs and told them to take care of themselves. Just like that, the Bai family's ancestor floated away and disappeared without a trace. Chapter 206. What? Soul-forming stage. The juniors exclaimed. This was probably the first time they heard of such a secret. Yu Qianqiu was completely speechless. The old man in the painting was indeed the Bai Chongqun who hid in that place. He was really heartless. He ran away from home for more than 2,000 years. Even if he didn't die, he still didn't go home. Was this what it meant to cut off all ties with the secular world? Wu Sihai nodded. According to the legends, if he really broke through to the soul-forming final stage, he should have no problem living for more than 2,000 years. Yu Qianqiu, can you tell me now, where is this Bai Chongqun you know? This time, even Bai Zizong and the other three looked at Yu Qianqiu with fiery eyes. The consequences of having another soul-forming stage cultivator in the four major clans was obvious. The latter rubbed his nose and smiled bitterly. It's not that I don't want to tell you. I really have my own difficulties. I'll decide if I want to tell you after I think about it. Besides, I only heard from others. I can't confirm that he is the ancestor of the Bai clan. Oh, then can you tell me who told you? Wu Sihai asked. I can't tell you that either. After Yu Qianqiu said that, he saw everyone frowning. He couldn't help but put on a sincere and well-intentioned look. Old man, don't be unhappy. That person is not someone your four major clans can afford to offend. Even Fuxin Island and 10,000 demons don't dare to offend him. They have already suffered a great loss in his hands. They're such a powerful person. Wu Sihai was surprised. Old man, I have to say something that you're not happy about. This world is very big. What you see is just the tip of the iceberg. There are many people as powerful as that person. It's just that no one knows about them. Didn't you see Dongfang Chong, Ao, and Xiu Weiyuan's reaction today? Today, I borrowed that person's name, and you saw the result. Yu Qianqiu smiled bitterly. Hearing him say this, everyone was shocked. So that's how it was. No wonder Xiu Weiyuan would call Yu Qianqiu Sr. at that time. Wu Sihai hesitated. There are so many powerful people. Why have I never heard of it? It's fine if you haven't heard of it. It might not be a good thing for the four clans to know. They won't interfere with the matters of the cultivation world easily anyway, said Yu Qianqiu with a smile. He didn't even know if what he said was true or false, so why did he have to be so clear about it? If you really managed to invite that old monster out, would your four great clans still be of use to me? Wu Sihai hesitated for a moment before asking. Yu Qianqiu, tell me honestly, are these people related to the force behind you? Yu Qianqiu waved his hand at him and didn't want to continue this topic. He changed the topic and asked, All right, old man, why did you bring me here? Seeing that he still didn't want to say it, Wu Sihai paused for a moment and took out a storage bag and threw it over, saying, Today's auction made you suffer some losses. This is the 10 million high-grade spirit stones that my Wu clan will return to you as compensation. Yu Qianqiu hugged the storage bag and smiled, saying, This is a good relationship, and I'm in need of money to spend. The four of them felt disgusted. You're in need of money to spend? Wu Sihai shook his head and smiled bitterly. He brought Yu Qianqiu here because he wanted to show his sincerity and say some nice words to strengthen the relationship between Wu Liqing and the others. Of course, this was because he fancied the faint force behind Yu Qianqiu. But the previous episode made some things clear. For example, the force behind you. If he said nice words now, it would make the other party think that he fancied the force behind you, and that wouldn't be good. Since that was the case, he might as well let nature take its course. They didn't know that Yu Qianqiu wanted them to think that he had a powerful force behind him, who asked him to not be powerful at all, and he could only do things like using the name of the world's #1 faction, Fuxin Island. He wasn't afraid of stirring up trouble outside because he had a backer. Otherwise, he would have been hunted down long ago. How could he still be leisurely here? Old man, why are there 5 artifacts refined by divine craftsmen in today's auction? They might not be top-notch artifacts, but they're all ancient artifacts. Don't you think it's strange? Yu Qianqiu suddenly asked. Aren't these 5 items all yours? Why do you care so much? Wu Sihai said in a bad mood. It was obvious that he was still a little angry that Yu Qianqiu didn't want to reveal Bai Chongqun's whereabouts. Yu Qianqiu pretended that he didn't hear it and continued to ask, Old man, could it be that they were all taken out by the same person? Wu Sihai made a non-committal "oh" sound, which could be considered as an admission. Yu Qianqiu's eyes lit up, and he didn't want to let it go. "Who is it?" The former coughed and said, "This concerns the reputation of my Wu clan's auction house. Don't ask about this, and I won't tell you even if you ask. Unless you tell me the whereabouts of Bai Changchun, I could consider telling you about the seller. Bulsh asterisk T reputation, old fox. If you don't tell me, I won't ask anymore. What does it have to do with me who the seller is?" Yu Qianshou scratched his head and acted as though the weather outside was very good. He said, "Old man, if there is nothing else, I will go back first." In fact, the topic that Yu Qianshou just asked also caused a lot of commotion among the other people who participated in the auction today. 5 treasures refined by a divine craftsman actually appeared at once. If there were other things like spiritual treasures, it would be a big problem that was enough to affect the entire cultivation world. There was also the appearance of 2,000 top-grade spirit stones. Did this mean that there might be a top-grade spirit stone mine? If any sect could get their hands on it, their overall strength would definitely soar. In places like the Hundred Flowers Valley and Hat Island, almost every sect had a shop. Sometimes they didn't care about how much money they could make, but mainly to ensure the smooth flow of information. Therefore, almost every shop had a kind of communication array. The cost of setting up this array was quite high, so some sects that were too weak couldn't afford it all. The news was constantly sent back to the sects from those people, and the sects also sent a large number of people to inquire everywhere. For a time, the silent cultivation world was completely lively. At night, Yu Qianshou was in the bedroom of the quiet guest house. He couldn't calm down to cultivate it all. He was really affected by some things that happened during the day. He had seen the financial resources of those big sects in today's auction. If he hadn't happened to find the top-grade spirit stone mine in the Demon Ghost domain, he wouldn't even be worthy to carry their shoes. They were really big sects with deep roots in the cultivation world. He believed that the financial resources they showed were only a part of their strength. Moreover, most of the sects had their own spirit stone mine, which could continuously accumulate wealth. But his own money was going to be less every time he used it. It couldn't be regenerated. There was also the mysterious seller. He didn't know if he had other more powerful magic treasures refined by other divine craftsmen. What shocked him the most was Wu Sihai's words. Bai Changchun was actually a rogue cultivator who had cultivated to the soul formation stage. At the age of 200, his cultivation had reached the late stage of the crossing calamity stage. This was simply incredible. Not to mention that he was a rogue cultivator without the support of a sect. When he was 300 years old, he was able to challenge the top experts of the righteous and devil sects alone, and none of them could take more than 3 moves from him. Yu Qianshou sat cross-legged on the bed with his eyes closed, murmuring to himself, "The great Tao, the heavenly Tao, the Tao of 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 Tao, the enlightenment, the cultivation of 1,000 miles in a day, the creation of a mystic technique. Damn it. I wonder what kind of secret art this self-created Xian art is. Isn't it a little too awesome? If I had known earlier, I would have memorized the Tao Te Ching in my previous life. Who knows, I might have been able to create some kind of Xian technique now. AI, I can't stand it. It's so exciting." Chapter 207. After tossing and turning for half a night, he was unable to meditate. He wanted to sleep without a care in the world, but his mind was full of magic skills, and he had a belly full of evil fire. He got up and listened carefully. It was quiet outside, so he disappeared from the bed and appeared directly in Chu Ping-er's room. Chu Ping-er, who was meditating, suddenly heard movement beside her and was startled. Before she could react, a hand covered her mouth, followed by the familiar smell of a man. Then another hand reached into her collar and rubbed her chest wantonly. Chu Ping immediately leaned back in a man's arms and let him take off her clothes. The room was filled with the panting and moaning of spring. After venting, Yu Qianshou felt much better. He used his divine sense to sweep the entire Misty Palace and found that his parents and brother were already asleep. Then he swept past by Sujin's room, but found that she was not in the room. He was slightly stunned and immediately released his divine sense to check. On the cliff opposite the misty palace, a white figure was playing the zither and singing under the moonlight. Who else could it be but Bai Sujin? Yu Qianqiu gently pushed away the plump, white, and tender naked body that refused to let go and said, "You sleep first. I have something to do at Guan Yu's place." "Okay." Chu Ping, but was extremely sad and let go of him reluctantly. He smiled guiltily and apologetically, put on his clothes, and disappeared, leaving a stunning beauty alone on the bed, hugging the pillow he had just slept on. "So I am indifferent to prosperity, only happy for you. I want to accompany you away from loneliness and freedom." Bai Sujin finished singing, and her jade-like fingers strummed the strings, echoing faintly. She asked without turning her head, "The song is very nice. I like it very much. You haven't told me what the name is." "You mean the name of the song?" Yu Qianqiu was stunned. Bai Sujin turned her head and looked at him, as if she had already known that he was coming. Her beautiful face smiled against the silver moonlight, and she nodded. "Huh, let me think." Yu Qianqiu scratched his head. He really didn't remember which song it was pirated from when she suddenly asked him. Fortunately, he remembered in time and nodded. "Go back. Go Chilai." Bai Sujin furrowed her brows and murmured to herself. Then, her brows relaxed, and she smiled gently under the moonlight. She sighed and said, "I'm afraid no one in this world can compare to you in terms of musical attainments." Yu Qianqiu was a little embarrassed by her words. Fortunately, he was used to being thick-skinned, so if he did not look carefully, he would not be able to tell. He smiled awkwardly and said, "Whether this thing is good or bad, it can't be eaten, and it can't be used to improve one's cultivation. It's just something I made casually. Sister, you don't have to take it to heart." Bai Sujin smiled faintly and looked into the distance, feeling the night wind blowing. Yu Qianqiu was stunned. He took out the items from his storage pouch and placed them on the zither. He smiled and said, "I bought them for you. Give them to Chu Ping. I don't need these things." Bai Sujin lowered her head and glanced at them. Before she finished speaking, she suddenly stood up. She stared at the items on the zither as if she was struck by lightning. Her voice trembled as she said, "Cloud chasing hairpin, Qi Yun handkerchief, snow luo gown, snow long damask." Yu Qianqiu was a little shocked. This was an ancient item. How could anyone tell what it was with a single glance? Furthermore, she looked very excited. Yu Qianqiu could not help but ask curiously, "Sis, have you seen these things before? How did these things end up in your hands? How could these things end up in your hands? Tell me, how did you get them?" Bai Sujin's voice became more and more excited. Her hands, which were half out of her white sleeves, were slightly trembling. "Sister, what's wrong?" Yu Qianqiu also became a little nervous. Bai Sujin grabbed him and almost begged, "Quickly tell me, how did you get them? These are things I bought from the auction house." "Sister, calm down. What's wrong? What does these things have to do with you?" Yu Qianqiu's hands steadied her shoulders. "You bought them from the auction house?" Bai Sujin broke free from his hands and picked up the snow luo gown. She flipped open the waistband, and under the moonlight, she could clearly see the two words "little snow." She immediately shook her head in a daze and said, "Impossible, impossible, you're lying to me. How could the auction house have these things? How could these things be auctioned?" "You're lying." Seeing that she was about to lose control of her emotions, Yu Qianqiu suddenly opened his arms and pulled her into his embrace tightly. He said in a low voice, "Calm down, calm down, calm down. Tell me what's going on. What do these things have to do with you?" Bai Sujin, who was about to struggle, smelled the scent coming from his body and was instantly startled. Her breathing gradually calmed down, and after a long time, she said, "I'm fine. Let go of me." Yu Qianqiu slowly released her and said in a soft voice, "What's going on?" Bai Sujin gently hugged the snow luo gown and looked into the distance. She said, "These four things are treasures that have been passed down through the generations of my fox clan. Although they are not top-grade treasures, they are the tokens of the clan leaders. So only the clan leader has the right to wear and use them. Before I was expelled from the fox clan, these four treasures belonged to my mother. Because of me, my mother took them off and gave them to the next clan leader." "You were expelled from the fox clan?" Yu Qianqiu was a little surprised. Yes. By Sujin slowly told the story. In the bitter cold lands of the far north, there was a group of snow foxes. They were the Fox clan that Bai Sujin was originally from. The Fox clan was also part of the Yao clan. The Yao clan had a lifespan that humans could not compare to, and Bai Sujin had just gained sentience over 1,000 years ago. She was still a little fox and could not take human form. However, she had heard many legends about love between humans from her sisters. There were also stories about the love between the Fox clan and humans. It was abnormally sad and mellow. The little fox was curious and full of admiration. She longed to experience the life of humans. So she sneaked out of the far north and ran in the direction of the legendary human residence. But when she finally arrived at the place where humans lived after many hardships, she discovered that everything was not as perfect as she had imagined. Almost all of the humans who saw her would want to kill her. There were sharp arrows flying at her from all directions. And when she hid in the deep mountains and forests, there were ferocious beasts that wanted to prey on her. She was completely panicked, so she ran and ran. She did not know how far she had run. But one day, she was shot by a hunter in a forest. She thought she was going to die, but she was saved by a scholar. The scholar carefully saved her. Just when her injuries were almost healed, her mother, who had planted a strand of divine sense in the little fox's body, found her and brought her back to the Fox clan in the far north. Ever since the little fox returned, the image of the scholar had been lingering in her mind. After cultivating for hundreds of years in the extreme north, she had already begun to cultivate. Although she was still unable to transform into a human form, she believed that she could already protect herself. She suggested to her mother that she wanted to repay the scholar's kindness. Her mother smiled and agreed to it, but she also made a request. That was, if she could not find the scholar, she must return. The little fox did not know the affairs of the world. How could she know that her mother agreed so readily? It was because ordinary humans could not live for hundreds of years. When she found the place where the scholar lived, it was already green mountains. Everything remained the same, but the people had changed. After wandering around the area for several years, the little fox was disappointed. She went back to the Fox clan to report to her mother. She begged her mother to let her go out to cultivate. Normally, a normal Fox clan would not be allowed to do so. But her mother had just taken over the position of clan leader and had some special privileges. She could not resist her daughter's request and agreed. Chapter 208. Thus, she once again went to the place where the scholar had lived. After wandering around for a while, she entered the mountains not far away to cultivate. Time passed quickly in the mountains, and several hundred years passed in the outside world. When she came out of the mountains again, she was a beautiful woman who had taken human form. In the past few hundred years, aside from returning to the Fox clan once every 10 years, she devoted herself to cultivating wholeheartedly. Where her mother discovered that her daughter's cultivation outside was actually much faster than in the Fox clan, she acquiesced to her daughter's freedom and allowed her to cultivate outside for long periods of time. Another 10 years later, when she returned from the Fox clan, she went to the place where the scholar had lived. To her surprise, she discovered that a new thatched hut had been built there. Hearing the sound of someone reading a book, she could not help but walk over to take a look. When she looked out the window, her body immediately shook. It was another scholar, and he looked very similar to the one from back then. That scholar had suddenly discovered such a beautiful woman and was also dumbfounded. Thus, something happened that caused the entire Fox clan to be enraged. The ancestors of this branch of the Fox clan had passed down a strict rule that no matter if the Fox clan was male or female, they were not allowed to have an ill-fated relationship with any human in the secular world. Otherwise, they would be executed. When she returned to the Fox clan, she knew that she would inevitably die. But who would have thought that she would be saved by the male branch of the Fox clan? The Fox clan was split into two branches, male and female. It had always been the female branch that held the position of clan leader. Who would have thought that the head of the male branch would find her mother, who was the clan leader of the entire Fox clan? He said that he was willing to protect her daughter's life, but the condition was that she would pass on the position of clan leader to the male branch. It was natural for one to lick one's calf, so the female clan leader agreed. As a result, the male branch mobilized a powerful force and used more than half of the people to forcefully violate the rules that had been in place for countless years, finally protecting Bai Sujin's life. She could escape punishment, but she could not escape the fate of being banished. Her mother also passed on the 4 treasures of the Snow Clan, which symbolized the authority of the clan leader, to the male branch under great pressure. The male branch finally got his wish and rightfully obtained the position of the clan leader. The rules of the Snow Fox clan that had lasted for countless years were finally broken. Yu Qianqiu knew what happened after that. After listening, Yu Qianqiu couldn't help but sigh. He didn't expect these 4 treasures to have such an origin. No wonder Bai Sujin was so excited. He couldn't help but shake his head and sigh. Since they are the inheritance treasures of your Fox clan, how did they end up here? It must have something to do with the male line of your Fox clan. I don't know. Bai Sujin painfully shook her head and said, "Let me go. I want to go back to the extreme north to take a look. Although I have already been banished from the Fox clan, I want to see what happened to the Fox clan. Why would the inheritance treasures end up in the auction house?" Yu Qianqiu hugged her and sincerely said, "Don't be anxious. Wait until I find out the origin of these 4 treasures. It won't be too late for you to go. Otherwise, you won't be able to come up with any conclusions if you run around without thinking. You have to trust me and wait patiently for a period of time." Bai Sujin clearly didn't want to wait any longer. "Listen to me, okay?" Yu Qianqiu indifferently said to her. Bai Sujin seemed to have no immunity to his words. She dejectedly lowered her head and agreed. Yu Qianqiu suddenly frowned and said, "These 4 treasures have been passed down in your Fox clan for so many years. Could it be that Little Snow is related to your Fox clan?" Bai Sujin, whose emotions had gradually calmed down, suddenly realized that she was in his arms. Her charming face instantly blushed. She slightly lowered her head and replied with her body trembling uncontrollably. "In ancient times, Little Snow was a member of my Fox clan. Legend has it that she was a soul formation stage expert of my Fox clan. Later on, she followed a human man called Mo Rookie to cultivate. When she returned, she used her martial power to unite the Fox clan that was originally scattered in the extreme north. That was how the extreme north unified the Snow Fox clan. Those clan rules that were passed down were set by her. Little Snow is also from the Fox clan?" Yu Qianqiu was stunned. So the divine craftsman was as great as him. He also had a fox spirit with a profound cultivation by his side. "That's right. Our Fox clan doesn't know how to refine weapons. Most of the treasures we use are refined by that human called Mo Rookie. They were brought back by Little Snow. Other than what Little Snow used, most of the other treasures have Mo Rookie's name on them, including the mountain-piercing claw that you used." Speaking up to here, Bai Sujin took the opportunity to escape from his arms. She took out the mountain-piercing claw and opened it for him to read. Yu Qianqiu looked carefully and found the words Mo Rookie in a lighter color. He really didn't expect that he had already used the treasures refined by the divine craftsman. He nodded and sighed. "So that's how it is. I understand. Since these are the treasures of your Fox clan, you can keep them first." Looking at the sky that was already slightly brightening, he continued, "I will go and find out how these treasures got here. Don't worry and leave it to me. All right, I still need you to take care of my family." After saying that, he disappeared. In fact, the last sentence was because he was afraid that she would miss her clan too much. So he purposely told her to do something to distract her. After Yu Qianqiu returned, he sorted out the details of the whole matter. He opened the door and directly knocked on the door of Wu Liqing's room, who was accompanying guests at the quiet guest house. The latter heard the sound and opened the door. He was stunned and said, "Yu Qianqiu, what's the matter? Bring me to your grandfather. I have something to talk to him about." Yu Qianqiu said directly. "Now?" Wu Liqing looked at the sky outside and said doubtfully, "Isn't it a little too early?" The commotion here had also attracted by Zizong and the other 2. They all asked, "What's the matter?" Yu Qianshou ignored the others and dragged him out. "Don't be so long-winded. I have something important to talk to your grandfather about. Bring me there quickly." Wu Liqing helplessly led him and the others out of the quiet guest house. After arriving at the living room of the largest manor in the Wu clan, he asked him to wait for a while and went to look for his grandfather. Not long after, Wu Sihai arrived. He also looked at the sky, then looked at Yu Qianshou and asked curiously, "What do you want from me?" Yu Qianshou rolled his eyes and said, "If there's nothing important, why would I disturb you so early in the morning?" Wu Sihai smiled and said, "Oh." He looked at the others and said, "What's the matter? Do you want to avoid them? We are all brothers. There's no need to avoid them," Yu Qianshou said indifferently. The others looked at each other and felt a little warmth in their hearts. "It must be something important to look for me at this time. Come with me. This is not the place to talk," Wu Sihai said and led them to a secret room. He turned around and asked, "What's the matter? Just say it." Yu Qianshou looked at him and said bluntly, "I want to know who the seller of the 4 sets of treasures is." Bai Zizong and the others looked at each other. Why did he ask this again at this time? Wu Sihai was startled. He put his hands behind his back and shook his head with a smile. "I already said that I can't tell you about this. This matter concerns the reputation of the entire Wu clan auction house. Moreover, the seller didn't show his face from the beginning. How can I know who it is? Someone auctioned 5 artifacts refined by a divine craftsman at once. How can you not know who it is? Even if you haven't seen it before, I believe that even if a bird flew across your Wu clan's territory, you would be able to tell its gender, let alone a living person. Otherwise, this place wouldn't be called the Wu clan's territory. All right, we're going a little too far. I promised you that as long as you tell me who the seller of these 4 treasures is, I will tell you Bai Changchun's whereabouts." After Yu Qianshou finished speaking, he was afraid that it wasn't enough, so he added, "I can basically confirm that this Bai Changchun is the ancestor of the Bai family. His cultivation has indeed reached the soul formation stage. I can guarantee you this." The others exclaimed in unison. This news was too important to the 4 major clans. Wu Sihai lost his composure and asked, "Are you serious?" "Don't worry. I'm a man of my words. Even if I don't give face to the Wu clan patriarch, I will still give face to my 4 brothers. I won't lie to you." Yu Qianshou smiled indifferently. What he was implying was that he didn't associate with the 4 major clans because of the power of the 4 major clans. Chapter 209. Wu Sihai hesitated for a moment, and then a trace of decisiveness flashed through his eyes. He nodded and said, "Deal," as expected of someone who's used to doing business. Yu Qianshou smiled and said, "Lord Master, who exactly is that person?" Wu Sihai's expression was solemn as he said, "This person has never revealed his true appearance, but as you said, our Wu clan has been operating here for many years. We naturally have our own methods to find out who he is, not to mention the sudden appearance of a mysterious patron. Even if it's for the safety of our Wu clan, we still have to find out who he is. It's just that we're quite shocked to find out who he is. I hope that you won't drag our Wu clan into this. This person's background isn't simple." Yu Qianshou waved his hand. "I know what to do even without your instructions. It won't be related to your Wu clan." "Who is it?" Wu Sihai frowned. "The young palace master of the 100 Flowers Palace, Yan Juexing." "It's him?" Yu Qianshou, Bai Zizong, and the others exclaimed in surprise. The 5 of them looked at each other, and then they fell silent. They seemed to be surprised, but at the same time, it seemed to be reasonable. Wu Sihai glanced at them and asked, "What's wrong? Do you have a relationship with this person?" "Not really." Wu Liqing shook his head. "This person seems to be very friendly on the surface, and he likes to make friends. What happened to Shui in the gurgling house is indirectly related to him. She owed him a favor in the 100 Flowers Valley." "Friendly on the surface? What do you mean?" Wu Sihai stared at his grandson and asked. "He's very friendly and smart. He's so smart that I suspect he has ulterior motives, and we don't dare to get too close to him. Brother Yu, on the other hand, eats whatever he wants, and he doesn't hold back." Wu Liqing smiled. Yu Qianqiu glared and pretended to be angry. What are you talking about? What do you mean I don't hold back? What did I skip your share? Do you think I'm the only one eating? They looked at each other and were completely speechless, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. In fact, Wu Liqing really wanted to say, every time we eat, you eat more than the four of us. Let's not talk about that for now. Wu Sihai waved his hand and said, Yu Qianqiu, can you tell me where old ancestor buys now? Yu Qianqiu sighed and said, can't you four clans give up on looking for him? No. Wu Sihai denied it right away. He sighed deeply and said, you don't know what patriarch by means to us for clans. It's not that we want to rely on him or anything. It's just that some people in the four clans think that it's meaningless for the four clans to be united for their own benefit. They're encouraging each other to set up their own sections. The situation is getting more and more intense. I don't know how many people are eyeing the four clans covetously. Once the four clans are separated, they're in danger of being annexed at any time. These people are short-sighted. Yu Qianqiu's gaze swept over by Zitsong's group of four. He thought to himself, so it turns out that the four great clans are having internal strife. For Wu Sihai to say such words in front of these four people, it's likely that these four first successors don't agree with the idea of splitting the clan. Bai Zitsong suddenly put a hand on his shoulder and sighed. Brother, you say it. The four clans need old ancestor now. Yu Qianqiu nodded and said, how much do you know about the demon domain? The demon domain? They were shocked. Wu Sihai said in a low voice, you mean old ancestor is in the demon domain? Yes, he is cultivating in seclusion in the center of the demon domain. Are you sure that you four clans can enter there? Yu Qianqiu asked. The center of the demon domain. Why is old ancestor living in seclusion there? Wu Sihai paced around and pondered. After a long time, he exhaled and said, rumor has it that the demon domain has the 10 great demon kings and the ghost king. All of them have extraordinary cultivation. I have never heard of anyone who can enter the center of the demon domain. My clan may not be able to do it, but with the strength of the four clans, it shouldn't be a problem. Hee. Yu Qianqiu sneered disdainfully. You four clans want to go deep into the center of the demon domain? The top 3 sects of the righteous and demon sects combined only dared to stay on the sky cloud peak, which was not far from the periphery of the demon domain. They didn't dare to go too far away from the sky cloud peak during the trial. Seeing him sneer, Wu Sihai was startled and said, do you think that the four clans can't reach the center of the demon domain? Yu Qianqiu sneered and said, I don't know how strong the four clans are, but I know that you are dreaming. You're talking about something that the four clans can't do. Not to mention the four clans. Even if the entire Huaxia Empire were to join forces, they might not be able to enter the center of the demon domain. Bai Zitsong and the others were shocked, but Wu Sihai shook his head and said, Yu Qianqiu, do you know how big the Huaxia Empire is? How many cultivators are there? Yu Qianqiu said expressionlessly, I don't care how big the Huaxia Empire is, but I know that the entire demon domain has a radius of tens of millions of miles. It is at least several times the size of the Huaxia Empire. Hey, the demon domain has such a large area? Wu Sihai was startled. Then he changed the topic and said with a smile, although the demon domain is powerful, don't underestimate the cultivation world of the Huaxia Empire. It is different from what you see on the surface. According to the information collected by the Wu clan over the years, there are hundreds of cultivators in the final stage of the passing calamity stage who rarely show themselves. If these people join forces, where can't we go? The 10 great demon kings and the 10 ghost king can't stop them. Humph! Yu Qianqiu snorted and said, Old master, do you really think that the entire demon domain only has the 10 great demon kings and the 10 ghost king? Isn't it? Wu Sihai asked. Old master, I told you where the ancestor of the Bai clan is, so there's no need to talk nonsense. However, for the sake of my four brothers, there are some things I still have to remind your four clans. After a pause, Yu Qianqiu said word by word, Old master, listen carefully. The periphery of the demon domain is guarded by the 10 great demon kings and the 10 ghost king. A demon king and a ghost king jointly control a territory. The demon king is in charge of the yang, and the ghost king is in charge of the yin. This is the periphery, and the inside is the most chaotic and dangerous place in the demon domain. There are probably nearly 10,000 demon kings and ghost king who have reached the final stage of the passing calamity stage. As for the other countless demons and ghosts, it is needless to say. Hee. Old master, do you still think the power of your 4 clans can enter the central area of the demon domain? I'm afraid that none of you can come out alive. They were stunned. Wu Sihai swallowed and said, nearly 10,000 demon kings and ghost king? How is this possible? If the demon domain had such strength, wouldn't it have occupied the human territory a long time ago? Humph. There are naturally secrets that outsiders don't know. Maybe you will have a chance to find out in the future. That's all I have to say. The 4 clans should know. Yu Qinshu cupped his hands and said to Bai Zizong and the others, thank you for your hospitality these days. I have something to do and have to leave. My 4 brothers, goodbye. Wait. Wu Sihai stopped him and frowned. According to what you said, the 4 clans have no chance to find the ancestor at all. But I have never heard of what you said. Why are you so familiar with the situation of the demon domain? Chapter 2:10. He was doubting what he had said. Yu Qinshu smiled. It's okay if you haven't heard of it. You'll know when you get to the monster ghost region. You're so sure. Have you gone deep into the monster ghost region? Wu Sihai asked. Yu Qinshu's heart skipped a beat. He curled his lips and said, I can't say deep. I've been touring around the monster ghost region for a few days. I just have some friendship with the ghost king that you mentioned. They were shocked again. This guy's secrets have been peeled off one layer after another. Wu Sihai put on a look of disbelief and said, as far as I know, the 10 great monster kings and the 10 ghost kings never interact with people from the outside world. You said that you have some friendship with them. Forgive me for finding it hard to believe. I even doubt that what you said about the Bai clan's ancestor is true. Bai Zizong and the other 3 looked at Wu Sihai in surprise. They wondered why he would say such rude words. Yu Qinshu smiled calmly. Old man, what I said is true. I can't help it if you don't believe me. Time is the best proof. In short, I have a clear conscience. Wu Sihai looked at him and said, you said that you have some friendship with the ghost king of the monster ghost region. Do you have any evidence that can convince me? If you do, you can show me. It will make me feel at ease. Old fox. Yu Qinshu sneered secretly. He scratched his head and smiled bitterly. I really don't know how to prove it. Old man, among the 10 ghost kings of the monster ghost region, there's a ghost general called the Ghost King. Have you heard of him? The ghost general of the monster ghost region. He was born at the wrong time. Even after his death, he is always in pain and regrets. He cries every night. Wu Sihai paced and murmured. He suddenly turned around and said, the ghost general should be the Ghost King. If you're talking about him, I have heard of him. This ghost general seems to be the only well-known ghost king in the Huaxia cultivation world. You mean him? Do you have some friendship with the ghost general? Bai Zizong and the others looked at Yu Qinshu. The latter nodded and said, it seems that only he is known in the Huaxia cultivation world. I have some friendship with him, and I have some evidence. I just don't know if you believe me. Wu Sihai raised his eyebrows. Then he calmed down and said calmly, then you might as well say it first. It seems that if I don't tell you something, you'll treat me as a liar. But let me make it clear in advance. There are some things that only the 4 families know. Don't tell it to anyone else. Otherwise, don't blame me for not warning you when you get into trouble. Yu Qinshu warned him deliberately. Of course. Wu Sihai nodded repeatedly. His eyes had lit up because of his words. Maybe he could know some unknown secrets. People were born to be curious. Yu Qinshu nodded slightly and said slowly, this ghost general was a general who fought with the ancestors of the Leaf family in the previous dynasty. He was defeated and died. By chance, he became a ghost cultivator. After his cultivation was successful, he gathered his old subordinates who died in the battle and gathered hundreds of thousands of ghost cultivators. Finally, He became a ghost king of the monster ghost region. His original name is Mengyan. What? The ghost general is Mengyan? Wu Sihai suddenly lost his voice. Yu Qianqiu was stunned and said, "Why? You know him?" But in his heart, he muttered, "That's impossible." Wu Sihai said in a deep voice, "In history, there was indeed an iron-blooded general who fought with the Li clan's ancestors for the world. His name was Mengyan. He was supposed to be the winner, but because the cultivation world intervened in the war, he died with a grudge. Haha, your Fuxian Island is the culprit. I'll continue with what you said." So it was history. Yu Qianqiu rolled his eyes for free and continued. Mengyan had a beautiful concubine named Yuji. The two of them lived happily in the monster ghost region. I have a good relationship with the couple. When I was playing in a monster ghost region, they treated me warmly and gave me a Ghost King token. Whether it's a demon or a ghost, they have to give me some face when they see this token. When I was playing in the monster ghost region, I avoided being disappointed by some small fries. That's the general relationship between me and Ghost General. As for whether I can make you believe me or not, I can't do anything about it. He said it casually, but they didn't know that it shocked them. This guy was actually playing in a monster ghost region that everyone in the cultivation world was afraid of. Was there any justice in this world? This sounded a little absurd, but the few of them firmly believed it because the story behind this fellow could not be judged by common sense. Wu Sihai swallowed his saliva and coughed. "Since Ghost General gave you a Ghost King token, I wonder if you can let me take a look. You have to know that the Wu clan is famous for their eyesight. We could tell whether it's real or fake with just one look." Not only him, but even Bai Zizong and the rest felt a little embarrassed. Who knew what the Ghost King token was? No matter how good the old man's eyesight was, he couldn't recognize it, right? The few of them could already guess what he was planning. "Old fox, I knew you would have your eyes on my token. You took the bait." Yu Qianqiu sneered in his heart. He scratched his head and said, "I don't even know if I have it with me. Let me take a look first." He reached into his storage bag and searched for a while. After a while, he said, "Found it." A pitch-black token was raised in Yu Qianqiu's hand. There were some simple carvings around it, but in the middle was a pair of deep eyes. It was demonic and captivating. The few of them looked carefully and were immediately stunned. Their expressions gradually became sluggish. Their entire mind was filled with that pair of cold and demonic eyes. Following that, an awe-inspiring general wearing golden armor appeared in their minds and gradually matched the pair of eyes. The general's robe was fluttering behind him. He was holding a sword in his hand. He was staring at them indifferently, as if he was looking at a group of ants. "Oh no, there's something strange about this token." Wu Sihai, who was in the middle stage of calamity passing, was shocked. He bit the tip of his tongue. The pain woke him up. As for Bai Zizong and the other three, because their cultivation was not high, their minds were immersed in it and could not extricate themselves. The former blocked in front of the token and shouted, "Wake up!" Bai Zizong and the rest who were mesmerized by the token trembled. They woke up as if they were in a dream. Their faces were filled with disbelief. "It really is the Ghost King's token." Wu Sihai turned around and asked, "Can I take a look?" "Old man, it's just a broken token. What's so special about it?" Yu Qianqiu generously gave it to him. "The Ghost King's token is a broken token?" Wu Sihai's face twitched. He took the token and examined it. He tried to avoid looking at the pair of eyes. After a long time, he exhaled and praised, "Good stuff. This Ghost King's token is made of the rare nether iron. TSK. Normal ghost cultivators can't get their hands on this. It really belongs to the Ghost King." "What's nether iron?" Yu Qianqiu was stunned. It was his first time hearing about it. Wu Sihai held the token and explained, "Ghost cultivators and demon cultivators are different from us cultivators. They don't rely on absorbing spiritual energy to increase their cultivation. They rely on absorbing in energy. In energy usually comes from underground caves. They are divided into 9 levels. The first level is the nether cave. The second level is the nether cave, and all the way up to the 9 nether cave. The higher the level of the cave, the stronger the Een energy and the stronger the Een wind. The 9 nether cave is the highest level. Even ghost cultivators at the end of the Ghost King can't withstand it. They will be killed by the wind if they dare to enter. Under normal circumstances, ghost cultivators at the end of the Ghost King's cultivation can only stay in the 8 Nether Cave to absorb energy. As for the 9 Nether Cave, only the legendary Ghost Sage dares to enter. The Ghost Sage's cultivation is equivalent to our legendary soul forming stage. This nether iron is a treasure that can only be found in caves that are level 8 and above. Chapter 211. Compared to the mystic gold sand I bought last time, which one is better? Yu Qianqiu asked. Mystic gold sand? Wu Sihai laughed. The two are not on the same level at all. Mystic gold sand can at most be used to refine treasures, while nether iron can be used to refine spiritual treasures. Which one do you think is better? Of course, no matter how good the item is, it needs the skill to refine it. This nether iron has the innate ability to absorb souls. The corpse sect of the demonic Tao has a magic weapon made of nether iron. They have captured many rogue cultivators and absorbed their souls. Those rogue cultivators are like walking corpses, which is why they are ranked 3rd in the demonic Tao. So that's how it is. Yu Qianqiu muttered. Then the next time I meet Ghost General, I will ask him to help me get more nether iron. Although his voice was low, they all looked at each other. It seemed that this guy's relationship with Ghost General was not ordinary. Wu Sihai coughed and said, Yu Qianqiu, can I discuss something with you? Here it comes. The old fox is finally showing his tail. Yu Qianqiu sneered in his heart, but nodded on the surface and said, Just say it, old master. Since both demons and ghosts in the demon region have to show some respect when they see this token, and it is useless to keep it with you, why don't you lend it to the 4 families first? We will return it to you after we find the old ancestor. We will definitely thank you after that. What do you think? Wu Sihai said a little unnaturally. After a long time, they finally got to the point. Bai Zizong and the other 3 turned their heads to the side as if nothing had happened. In fact, if you paid attention, you could see that they were a little embarrassed. Old master, that's a good idea. Yu Qianqiu took the token from his hand and threw it directly into the storage bag. He smiled and said, It's not that I don't want to lend it to you, but this token is useful to me, but it is useless to you. Wu Sihai watched helplessly as the Ghost King token was taken away. He even had the urge to snatch it back. Suppressing his emotions, he frowned and asked, Why do you say that? When Meng Yin gave me the token, he told me again and again not to give it to anyone else. If the 4 great clans go to the Demon Ghost region and flash the Ghost King token, I believe it won't take long for Meng Yin to find out. Once he finds out that the token is in your hands, he believed that Meng Yan's hundreds of thousands of troops were not just for show. At that time, in a fit of rage, Meng Yin has many experts under him. If Old Master thinks that the 4 great families can fight against Ghost General, I can let you try. What I'm afraid of is that this token won't be of any help to you. It would be bad if you end up attracting even more trouble. That fellow Meng Yan's temper wasn't good. There was also the Demon King Ao Li, who shared the same roots as him. Old Master, I advise you to give up on this idea. Yu Qianqiu shook his head and smiled. Wu Sihai was a little dumbfounded. He had calculated for a long time and thought that he was close. Who knew that his dream would be destroyed by Yu Qianqiu? After a while, he pretended to be nonchalant and asked, Who is the Demon King Ao Li? One of the 10 great demon kings? Is his relationship with Ghost General good? Yu Qianqiu nodded and said yes. He is one of the 10 great demon kings. He is the lord of a territory with Ghost General. The 2 of them are like brothers. One is in charge of Yang, and the other is in charge of Yin. Ma Jiugu of supporting Immortal Island was defeated by him. Even Ma Jiugu of supporting Immortal Island, who is in the late tribulation passing stage, is no match for Demon King Ao Li. Wu Sihai could no longer pretend, and his face twitched. It should be known that Ma Jiugu was the #1 expert not only in supporting Immortal Island, but also in the entire Chinese cultivation world. Her Demon Slayer wand was rarely matched. Unexpectedly, she was defeated by a demon king who is also in the late tribulation passing stage. The 10 great demon kings of the Devil Domain were indeed worthy of their reputation. Wu Sihai sighed softly and looked a little dispirited. One ghost general was already difficult to deal with. Now, there was Demon King Aoli, and there were many Ghost King and Demon Kings. It seemed that even if he knew the whereabouts of the ancestor, it would be difficult to meet him again. Seeing him in a daze, Yu Qianqiu laughed inwardly, but he still put on a serious face and said, "Old master, you don't need to be discouraged. If you really want to go, at worst, I'll accompany your 4 great families to the demon realm after I finish my business." Wu Sihai's eyes lit up and said, "Are you serious?" "What do you mean by serious?" Yu Qianqiu sneered and pointed at Bai Zitsong's group of 4. He said, "I only made this trip because of my 4 brothers. Do you think I have nothing better to do after eating my fill?" Bai Zitsong and the other 3 were delighted. They exchanged glances and cupped their fists to thank him. Wu Sihai said happily, "What do you want to do? Our 4 families may not be comparable to supporting Immortal Island, but we have some ability. Do you need our help?" "Sure." Yu Qianqiu touched his nose and said seriously, "Using the 4 families is making a mountain out of a molehill. It's enough with your Wu family's help. Old master, can you help me ask Yin Juexing of 100 Flower Palace where he got the 4 treasures of Xiao Shui?" Wu Sihai's smile froze on his face. After a while, he said awkwardly, "It's not convenient for my Wu family to take action. Is there anything else that you need my Wu family's help with?" Yu Qianqiu waved his hand indifferently and said, "Forget it. I'll look for you when I have something else. Just don't shirk it again. Hee. I'll help as long as I can." Wu Sihai smiled awkwardly. He felt that something was wrong no matter how he thought about it. It felt like he was being schemed against by Yu Qianqiu. "Oh, then I hope that the next time I ask for your help will be within your scope." Yu Qianqiu's tone sounded like he didn't have any hope for the Wu family. The more they talked about it, the more embarrassed Wu Sihai felt. He immediately changed the topic and said, "Why do you want to know where the 4 treasures came from?" Yu Qianqiu squinted his eyes and didn't hide anything. He said in a deep voice, "There's a demon clan in the extreme north called the Snow Fox clan. Xiao Shui, who followed the divine craftsman in ancient times, was the first clan leader of the Snow Fox clan. The 4 treasures that the divine craftsman refined are the tokens of the Snow Fox clan's clan leader. I want to know how the treasures of the Snow Fox clan ended up in Yin Juexing's hands." Xiao Shui is from the demon clan? Wu Sihai was surprised. Bai Zitsong and the other 3 looked at each other. Bai Zitsong then asked, "The extreme north should be out of the Huaxia Empire's territory. How do you know about it?" "I just heard about it. I was once entrusted by someone and nearly forgot about it. I only recalled it last night, and came to ask you about it." Yu Qianqiu casually said a few words and cupped his hands. "Let's not talk anymore. I will make a trip back to the 100 Flowers Valley first. I will come back to discuss with the 4 major clans about the trip to the demon region. Wait, I have something to tell you." Wu Sihai stopped Jiang Yi and hesitated for a moment before speaking. "My Wu clan already knows about the Yu clan's matter in Swallow Zicheng. I believe the other factions will know soon, too. I believe the supporting Immortal Island won't be an exception. There's also Ong Kwangsung. I reckon they won't let you off so easily. You better be careful." Chapter 2:12. There was a short moment of silence in the secret room. Apart from the Wu clan's grandfather-grandson duo and Yu Qianqiu, Bai Zitsong and the others were confused and didn't know what kind of riddle they were playing. Yu Qianqiu's thoughts were spinning rapidly. Even the Wu clan knew about his background, and the supporting Immortal Island naturally wouldn't be able to hide it from them. He sneered and said, "That Liu Changqing was courting death. He actually dared to extend his claws to my clansmen in the secular world. If I don't kill him, should I let him off? If it's a blessing, it won't be a calamity, and if it's a calamity, it can't be avoided. I hope that Ong Kwangsung knows his place and doesn't provoke me again. If he angers me, I will remove Ong Kwangsung's name from the cultivation world." His words contained traces of chilling intent, and everyone quivered. Bai Zitsong, Tan Fei, and Jingzhou looked at one another in dismay. On Kwansung's patriarch, Liu Changqing, was actually killed by him. They sighed silently and weren't worried about Yu Qianshou. Instead, they were worried for On Kwansung. On Kwansung's patriarch was killed, and he definitely wouldn't let Yu Qianshou off. However, this fellow's background was truly unfathomable. Could On Kwansung win against him? My Wu clan will send a few people to escort you to the 100-Flower Palace. Wu Sihai frowned and said he was worried that if something happened to Yu Qianshou, his 4 major clans' trip to the Demon Ghost region would be ruined. Yu Qianshou waved his hand and said, "No need. On Kwansung can't do anything to me. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to stay in the cultivation world." Seeing that he was stubborn, they didn't say anything else and walked out of the secret room. When they walked to the entrance of the main hall, a Wu clan's disciple suddenly ran over and reported, "Clan head, Elder Dongfang Chang'ao of Supporting Immortal Island wants us to pass a message to Supporting Immortal Island's disciple Yu Qianshou, asking him to return to Supporting Immortal Island's Supporting Immortal Island shop." Got it. Wu Sihai waved his hand, and the disciple retreated. After confirming that Yu Qianshou wanted to go back immediately, he cast a spell to the guards on the nearby tower, asking Wu Liqing and the other 3 to lead Yu Qianshou and fly out on their flying swords. When the 5 of them arrived at Supporting Immortal Island's shop, Wan Yuan was waiting at the entrance, and he immediately brought them to the back of the shop. Dongfang Chang'ao was standing in the courtyard with his hands behind his back, and there were 2 other elders who came with him on both sides. Yu Qianshou quickly bowed to the 3 of them, and Bai Zizong and the other 3 bowed in turn and said, "The 4 major clans Bai Zizong, Tan Fei, Jingzhua, and Wu Liqing greet the 3 seniors." The elders on both sides held the armrests of the 4 of them, indicating that they didn't need to be overly courteous. At this moment, Dongfang Chang'o turned around and looked at Yu Qianshou, and he said in a deep voice, "Yu Qianshou, why do you have trouble wherever you go? The moment you arrived at the 100 Flowers Valley, you beat up Sect leader On Kwansung's grandson, and when you arrived at Hat Island, you beat up the Luo Sect leader's son. Do you think that you haven't caused enough trouble for Supporting Immortal Island?" "Elder Dongfang, I was forced to do this. These 2 people really deserved a beating, and they were the ones who started it both times. I was just defending myself. Otherwise, I would have lost face for Supporting Immortal Island," Yu Qianshou said with a little grievance. Bai Zizong and the other 3 were stunned. How is this still the arrogant Yu Qianshou? Wan Yuan didn't say a word. The other 2 elders looked at each other, and their lips curled into a smile. They were actually very satisfied with Yu Qianshou's way of doing things. During this period of time, the whole cultivation world was talking about how this disciple of Supporting Immortal Island was doing, beating up this sect leader's son, and then beating up that sect leader's son. Good. He really made Supporting Immortal Island proud. Oomph. I want to talk about the past. Tell me honestly, did you get into trouble again? Dongfang Chang Ao stared at him and asked. Yu Qianshou scratched his head and said, "No, I have been staying in the Wu clan, and apart from beating up that Luo Shaohan, I didn't do anything else." Then why did On Kwansung's old ancestor Qing Nu personally come to Supporting Immortal Island to look for you, and even made the sect leader send a message to bring you back to Supporting Immortal Island immediately? Dongfang Chang Ao shouted. It was exposed. Bai Zizong and the other 3 secretly exchanged glances. Yu Qianshou was stunned, and he said, "On Kwansung's old ancestor Qing Nu? I don't even know him. Why is he looking for me?" He thought to himself, "I have never heard of this person in On Kwansung. Am I asking you, or are you asking me?" Dongfang Chang Ao shouted again. Yu Qianshou said with a bitter face, "Elder Dongfang, I am innocent. These few days, I have been following the 4 major clan successors closely, and I didn't do anything. If you don't believe me, you can ask them." Bai Zizong and the other 3 nodded, and they immediately cupped their fists in unison and said, "Elder Dongfang, the 4 of us can testify for Brother Yu. These few days, he really didn't do anything out of line." The successors of the 4 major clans still had some weight. Dongfang Chang'o looked at them, stood there for a moment, and said in a deep voice, "Follow me back to supporting Immortal Island first. We can talk about anything else when we get back." An elder at the side took out a flying artifact that looked like a small boat, and Yu Qianshou obediently jumped onto it under everyone's gaze. After Dongfang Chang Ao and the other two got on the boat, the small boat turned into a stream of light and flew away, leaving the people in the courtyard to send them off. Riding the wind, breaking through the clouds, they flew across the sky. Yu Qianshou sat alone at the end, thinking about how to explain when he got back. On Quansung's old ancestor Qing Nu came to supporting Immortal Island. Needless to say, Lu Changqing's matter was exposed. Sigh. Looks like the matter of finding Yin Zhuixing will have to be postponed. When they returned to supporting Immortal Island, the small boat directly landed in front of Penglai Pavilion, and they got off. Dongfang Chang Ao led him upstairs, and the other two didn't follow. They didn't go to the Sect Master's room, but to a large room that was used to receive guests. As soon as they entered, Yu Qianshou realized that the atmosphere inside was a little strange, and he secretly thought that something was wrong. After Dongfang Chang Ao reported to the Sect Master, he also bowed to everyone. When he retreated to the side, the room was full of familiar people, including Master Guan Weiwu and Ferdinand. The two of them looked at him with a strange expression, but he didn't see a tall, white-haired old man in a green robe. He was standing beside Sect Master Feng Xiangtian, sizing him up. He must be on Quansung's old ancestor Qing Nu. Feng Xiangtian frowned and said, "Yu Qianshou, do you know your mistake?" "I know my mistake." Yu Qianshou hurriedly bowed. Everyone in the room was stunned, but they heard him say, "Disciple shouldn't have caused trouble outside and brought trouble to the sect. Sect Master, please give Disciple another chance. Disciple will definitely change for the better." "So, did you really kill on Quansung's Sect Master Lu Changqing?" Feng Xiangtian said in a deep voice. Dongfang Chang Ao was shocked. He suspected that Yu Qianshou had caused trouble again, but he didn't expect that he killed on Quansung's Sect Master. How is that possible? I killed on Quansung's Sect Master?" Yu Qianshou was stunned, and he said after a long time, "Sect Master, did I hear it wrong? Did you say that I killed on Quansung's Sect Master?" "Isn't that so?" Feng Xiangtian scoffed. "The matter has been investigated clearly, and you still want to quibble? Sect Master, you must be mistaken. How could I kill on Quansung's Sect Master?" Yu Qianshou argued. Chapter 213. Feng Xiangtian said in a deep voice, "Looks like you're going to resist till the end and refuse to admit it." Yu Qianshou stood there with a wronged look and didn't say a word. It was as if he didn't do it. How could he admit it? "You were originally a disciple of Ong Quansung. Why did you join Fu Xian Island? Speak. What are your intentions?" Feng Xiangtian shouted. Although he said that, he couldn't bear it in his heart. Such a rare and good seedling was going to be destroyed here. Damn it, I'm exposed. Yu Qianshou didn't reply to him. Instead, he turned around and bowed deeply to Guan Weiwu. With a distressed expression, he said, "This disciple was originally a commoner in the mortal world. My family was quite wealthy, and I originally wanted to live a carefree life. Fortunately, my ancestors saved on Quansung's Sect Master, Lu Changqing. In order to repay the kindness, Lu Changqing brought me to Ong Quansung to cultivate, even though I didn't have a spiritual root to cultivate. Then, I became master and disciple with Sect Master, How Sansi. Under the encouragement of my master, this disciple concentrated on training day and night, not daring to slack off for even a day. Perhaps it was heaven rewarding the diligent. I was a disciple of the Azure Light sect who had no spiritual roots and was humiliated by my fellow disciples. One day, I was enlightened and stepped into the refining chi stage. This should have been a happy event, but who would have thought that my master would warn me not to reveal a bit of my cultivation in front of others? At that time, this disciple didn't understand. Later, because my master was attacked and died, I was so angry that I exchanged a palm strike with the head's grandson, Lu Zhengguang, and revealed my cultivation. Afterwards, I understood why my master repeatedly warned me not to reveal my cultivation. Yu Qianshou looked at everyone and bowed to Guan Weiwu again. Sect Master, Lu Changqing kept sending elders to ask me to reveal my cultivation secrets. But how could I have any cultivation secrets? I only know how to make up for my lack of cultivation with diligence. Because of this, I was demoted to a spirit stone mine to do hard labor. It was only a day after my master passed away. They couldn't wait any longer. So be it if you have to do hard labor. But the sect leader didn't want to let me go. He sent Elder Lu Wanxian to threaten and bribe me. I almost died in his hands several times, but I didn't know any cultivation secrets. How could I tell him? Then, one day, the Magic Illusion Palace attacked the Spirit Stone Mine. The dignified elder of the Ong Kwang Tsung, Lu Wanwan, used me as a shield in order to escape. Fortunately, this disciple was lucky enough to survive. Looking at the whole Spirit Stone Mine, I was disheartened and didn't think about cultivation anymore. So, I left quietly, thinking that it was just a nightmare and that I never came to Ong Kwang Tsung. Everyone from the Supporting Immortals island side. It turned out that Yu Qianshou had such a miserable experience. Imagine a disciple without spiritual roots suddenly being able to cultivate. Some sects would indeed use all kinds of means. Who would have thought that Yu Qianshou was an exception with extraordinary talent? However, a dignified righteous sect actually did such a thing to their own disciple. Anyone would be disappointed and leave Ong Kwang Tsung just like that. Everyone glanced at the green-robed elder and couldn't help but reveal a trace of disdain. When Qing Nu, who was beside Feng Xiangtian, heard Yu Qianshou's words, a few of his white beards were already broken. He cupped his hands at everyone and sighed. I won't hide my shame. I also heard about this matter after the incident. It was indeed those evil disciples who were devoid of conscience and did the wrong thing first. Sigh, let's not talk about the sect's misfortune. How shameful. These words undoubtedly proved that Yu Qianshou's words were true, and everyone felt even more sympathy for Yu Qianshou from the bottom of their hearts. Especially the Cultivation Pavilion's principal elder, O Si Hai. He thought to himself, Ong Kwang Tsung didn't want such an outstanding disciple. Now that he has entered my Supporting Immortals Island, he is my Supporting Immortals Island's disciple. How dare you, a mere Ong Kwang Tsung, come to my Supporting Immortals Island to ask for him? This is outrageous. He had been thinking about how to get Yu Qianshou into his cultivation pavilion. Brother Qing, don't blame yourself. Feng Xiangtian calmly comforted him. He faced Yu Qianshou and said in a deep voice, Where did you get the Supporting Immortals token from back then? Yu Qianshou still didn't answer him directly. Instead, he bowed to Guan Weiwu, causing everyone to frown. He was clearly not putting the sect master in his eyes. Feng Xiangtian was expressionless. The former bowed and said, After leaving Ong Kwang Tsung, I wandered around. Once, I met an injured Qi refinement stage cultivator who was on the verge of death. Unfortunately, I couldn't save him no matter how hard I tried. Before he died, he said that he was originally a disciple expelled by Supporting Immortals Island. His name was Ji Wushuang. He gave me a token to repay my kindness and said that I could join Supporting Immortals Island with this token. I originally gave up on the idea of cultivating, but when I heard that it was the world's largest sect, I couldn't help but want to give it a try. In the end, I became a disciple of Supporting Immortals Island. Ji Wushuang? Feng Xiangtian frowned. He looked around and asked, Is there a disciple called Ji Wushuang among the expelled disciples? O Si Hai suddenly sighed and said, Sect Master, Yu Qianshou is right. There was a disciple who was expelled from the sect called Ji Wushuang. He was a disciple of the Cultivation Pavilion. He was the grandson of the late Elder Ji. His father died in battle for Supporting Immortals Island. I didn't expect. Sigh, Elder Ji's grandson? 3 generations of his grandfather and grandson are all dead? Feng Xiangtian paused. Everyone looked at each other in dismay. Their expressions were a bit sad. The disciples who were expelled from the sect didn't have a good ending. They didn't think that even the grandson of a dignified elder of the cultivation pavilion would end up like this. The elders who were able to hold the immortal supporting medallion were all senior elders. Feng Xiangtian came back to his senses and shouted, "Why did you kill Sect Master On Quan-sung?" "I didn't kill him." Yu Qianqiu kept staring at Guan Weiwu, who felt uncomfortable under his gaze. "You won't shed a tear until you see the coffin." Feng Xiangtian snorted. At first, he wanted to protect Guan Weiwu. After all, talents were rare. However, Guan Weiwu had repeatedly looked down on him and even dared to deceive him. How could he put his face as the sect master? He was simply courting death. Feng Xiangtian shouted towards the outside, "Bring him in." Two disciples pushed a person in. As soon as the person came in, he immediately knelt down and kowtowed to everyone. Trembling, he said, "Great immortals, great immortals." Yu Qianqiu didn't even look at that person. He only stared at his master, Guan Weiwu. Feng Xiangtian pointed at Yu Qianqiu and shouted to that person, "Come forward. See if he is the person who released those flying swords that night." "Yes, yes, yes." That person scrambled over. When he looked back, he immediately cried out in joy, "Eldest young master." Then he nodded to Feng Xiangtian and said, "That night, it was my eldest young master who released those flying swords and fought with the evil person who destroyed my Yu clan." Yu Qianqiu was slightly stunned. He looked down and saw that the person looked familiar, but he couldn't remember his name. He then looked at the clothes he was wearing. It was the uniform of the Yu residence's servants. He couldn't help but shake his head with a bitter smile. What else could he say? Feng Xiangtian said with an expressionless face, "Yu Qianqiu, what else do you have to say?" Yu Qianqiu didn't answer. He looked at Guan Weiwu and said with a faint smile, "Master, could it be that you have nothing to say?" When he said that, his heart turned cold. He said those words to Guan Weiwu because he wanted to tell Guan Weiwu about his difficulties and hoped that master could understand. But as his master, Guan Weiwu actually didn't say a word for him. He didn't have any intention of protecting him. Could it be that the relationship between the two of them was so bad in the past? Since things had come to this, was there a need to stay on Fuxin Island? The smile on Yu Qianqiu's face gradually faded. He slowly closed his eyes. Seeing his disciple like this, a look of pain flashed across Guan Weiwu's face. It wasn't that he didn't want to speak for his disciple. In fact, after he knew about this matter, he immediately went to find his senior brother, hoping that his senior brother would show mercy. But the latter immediately scolded him, saying that this matter involved other sects, and whether it was fair or not was related to the reputation of Fuxin Island. He sternly warned him that, as Yu Qianqiu's master, he shouldn't intervene in this matter. He knew how to deal with it. Ferdinand was also warned. Yu Qianqiu suddenly opened his eyes. His face was full of coldness. Suddenly, he knelt down in front of Guan Weiwu and kowtowed 3 times in a row. After standing up, he brushed the hem of his gown with one hand and pulled it with both hands. With a hiss sound, the front hem of the gown was torn off on the spot. He pinched it with one hand and slowly raised it towards everyone. Everyone was stunned. They didn't know what he meant. He raised the torn hem of the gown and shouted in a deep voice, "Master, once this gown is torn, you and I are no longer friends. We don't owe each other anything. From now on, I, Yu Qianqiu, have nothing to do with Fuxin Island. From now on, I, Yu Qianqiu, am free to fly in the sky and fish in the sea. No one can control me, Yu Qianqiu." Chapter 214. How dare you? Osihai shouted. The good seedling that he coveted for a long time actually said such disgraceful words. He really didn't want to stay on supporting Xian Island anymore. Feng Xiangtian's face turned frighteningly gloomy. Since the establishment of supporting Xian Island, it had always been the sects that expelled their disciples. When had there ever been a case of a disciple abandoning the sect? Guan Weiwu and Ferdinand were already stunned. The group of elders was a little dumbfounded. The 2 disciples who had just escorted the person and looked at each other. Qingnu was also a little stunned. This Yu Qianqiu was really courageous to publicly break off relations with the world's #1 sect supporting Xian Island. In the entire cultivation world, How many people would dare to do such a thing? What a pity. Such a person would probably not be able to escape today. Yu Qianshou, it's not too late to take back what you said just now. Otherwise, you'll be in big trouble. Osihai warned sternly again. He really didn't want Yu Qianshou to be destroyed just like this. In fact, he was already trying his best to protect Yu Qianshou. Feng Xiangtian's face was gloomy. He raised his hand and pressed down on Osihai, signaling him to stop talking. However, he didn't know that Yu Qianshou had already made up his mind. His initial respectful look was already gone. He straightened his back and shook his head indifferently. Spilled water can't be retrieved. The words that Yu Qianshou, said are like spilled water. There's no way to take them back. Spilled water can't be retrieved. Feng Xiangtian looked around and sneered. I announced that from today onwards, Yu Qianshou will be expelled from supporting Xian Island. His life or death has nothing to do with supporting Xian Island anymore. Foreign Affairs Palace immediately spread the news to the entire cultivation world. He turned around and said to Qing Nu beside him, Brother Qing, I'm sorry. From today onwards, the grudge between you, Ong, Guangtsung, and a Luo sect has nothing to do with Fuxian Island. We won't interfere in this matter anymore. This meant that the supporting Immortal Island had completely abandoned Yu Qianshou. From now on, Yu Qianshou would have to bear all the troubles he caused by himself. The supporting Immortal Island would never stand up for him again. How could a core formation disciple survive against the Luo sect and Ong Guangtsung? This was a disguised form of punishment. Ferdinand shook his head and sighed, while Guan Weiwu's face turned pale. This. Qing Nu also didn't come back to her senses for a while. How did things turn out like this in the blink of an eye? He had always guessed that Lu Chongqing's death had something to do with supporting Immortal Island. Otherwise, where did those men in black come from? This matter had always troubled the upper echelons of Ong Guangtsung. They couldn't afford to offend them, but they had to deal with it. However, from what happened just now, if supporting Immortal Island wasn't deliberately putting on a show, then this matter really had nothing to do with supporting Immortal Island. Qing Nu thought about it again and again. She stared at Yu Qianshou and said in a deep voice, Yu Qianshou is my Ong Guangtsung Sect's treasure, the green destiny sword. In your hands? If it's in your hands, you should return it to me. Return what? It was destroyed along with that broken horsetail whisk. Yu Qianshou sneered and said, even if the two treasures weren't destroyed, do you think I would return them to you? The dignified sect leader, Ong Guangtsung, actually tried to kill my family members in the secular world. Moreover, they were the descendants of a savior. Only you people would do such a thing. Now, you still have a cheek to ask me for the green destiny sword? Is there something wrong with your brain? Everyone was speechless. This Yu Qianshou didn't even care about old ancestor Qing Nu, who was famous in the cultivation world. He was really arrogant. It seemed like it wasn't strange that he could continuously beat people up. What? The green destiny sword was destroyed? Qing Nu's expression was a little twitching. She had seen the horsetail whisk that was destroyed, so she was afraid that he was telling the truth. Suppressing the anger in her heart, Qing Nu said in a deep voice, I, Ong Guangtsung, let you down first. Logically, I shouldn't pursue this matter. However, you killed my Ong Guangtsung sect leader. Whether you are willing or not, I will imprison you in Ong Guangtsung for 100 years. Also, who are those black-clothed people? You want to imprison me for 100 years? Dream on, Yu Qianshou said in disdain. Qing Nu hadn't been humiliated like this for many years. She immediately had the intention to fight. Yu Qianshou waved his hand at her and smiled. Wait, if he had anything to ask or to fight, he would have to leave the supporting Immortal Island first. We aren't people of supporting Immortal Island. Fighting in their territory is not giving them face. All right, as you wish. Qing Nu was really angry. This kid was too arrogant. If she didn't teach him a lesson, she would be letting herself down. She immediately cupped her fists at Feng Xiangtian and said, Sect Leader Feng, please open the island's protective array and let us out. Feng Xiangtian nodded and flicked a white light out of the window. That white light flew into the sky. Old man, come out and reason with me. Yu Qianqiu shouted at Qing Nu. He jumped out of the window and did a somersault in the air. The sword on his back was unsheathed and drew a semicircle, carrying him into the sky. Sect leader Feng, sorry to disturb you. Qing Nu cupped her fists and flew out of the window. However, with her cultivation at the end of the tribulation stage, she naturally didn't need to play such low-level tricks like sword kinesis. She turned into a shadow and chased after Yu Qianqiu, who had become a black dot in the sky. Let's go and take a look. After getting Feng Xiangtian's approval, several figures flew out of the window. Swoosh! Hearing the whistling sound coming from below, Yu Qianqiu looked down and was speechless. This tribulation stage expert is really an expert. Flying in the air is faster than me flying on my sword. When he looked back and saw a white cloud above him, he immediately raised his cultivation to the limit and flew into it. Want to run? Qing Nu, who was flying over, sneered in his heart when he saw the situation above him. His silhouette could still be seen, but as he smiled, he suddenly vanished into thin air. He had used teleportation, and when he reappeared, he was already at the edge of the white cloud high up in the sky. Yu Qianqiu had just managed to jump in before him. When Qing Nu saw him hiding inside, she did not chase after him. Instead, she flew directly to the top of the cloud. Looking around, this cloud was only 100 meters in radius. Immediately, she released a divine sense to scan the entire cloud. After a while, Qing Nu's face changed. Her divine sense went back and forth several times, but she didn't find the person inside. How could this be? With his cultivation, as long as his body moved slightly, it was impossible that her divine sense couldn't find him. At this time, Osihai and Dongfang Chanao also quickly came to his side and floated together in the air. Seeing his bad expression, Osihai said, "Senior Qing, what's wrong?" "That guy is gone," Qing Nu said with a strange expression. The people who came later looked at each other. How could this be? With Qing Nu's cultivation at the end of the tribulation stage, how could Yu Qianqiu escape? Osihai was stunned and said, "Impossible. With Yu Qianqiu's cultivation, how could he escape from Senior's hands? Even I don't think I can do it." "No, I clearly saw him come in, and he should still be inside. How could I not find him? This guy is a little strange." After Qing Nu finished speaking, her divine sense swept back and forth again. Osihai and the others also released their divine sense to check, but they still found nothing. "I don't believe that this guy can escape under my eyes. You guys back off." After Qing Nu let them back a little, a long sword suddenly appeared in her hand. She raised it towards the sky and shouted, "Green sky sword art." The long sword in her hand emitted a green sword shadow that was nearly 100 meters long. It pierced the sky and suddenly radiated an imposing aura that spread out, causing the clothes of the people not far away to flutter. They exchanged glances. The old guy lost his face, got angry, and wanted to kill. The huge sword in Qing Nu's hand suddenly moved. It looked huge, but it was very dexterous in her hand. Oh, the huge sword directly stirred the clouds. As her hand moved faster and faster, the whole white cloud was stirred up like a tornado and gradually dissipated in the air, until all the white clouds disappeared without a trace. Qing Nu put away the sword in her hand and threw it back into the storage bag. But in front of her, there was no one. Chapter 2:15. They looked around, but it was obvious that Yu Qianqiu had run away. A core formation realm disciple had escaped from a cultivator in the final stage of the tribulation passing stage. He had disappeared without a trace, and it was inexplicable. Qing Nu, who was floating in the air, had an ugly expression. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that this was her humiliation. Did Yu Qianqiu leave supporting Immortal Island just like that? Osihai groaned in pain from the bottom of his heart. He was really optimistic about Yu Qianqiu's potential, especially everything that had happened now. It made him sigh endlessly. At such a young age, Yu Qianqiu already had such means. However, everything was impossible now. Yu Qianqiu had really left. They flew to Qing Nu's side, and Osihai asked superfluously, "Senior, did Yu Qianqiu run away?" Qingnu looked around with a gloomy expression. There were only a few clouds in the blue sky, and below them was a vast sea. With Yu Qianqiu's cultivation, where could he run to? Could it be? He stared at supporting Immortal Island, which was shrouded in mist. Osihai understood what he meant, and he said in astonishment, "Senior, do you suspect that he went back to supporting Immortal Island? That's impossible. When we just came out, the island's protective formation sealed, supporting Immortal Island again. He can't go back. Why don't Senior go back to supporting Immortal Island to look for him?" Qingnu did have that thought. But even if Yu Qianqiu went back to hide, what right did he have to search supporting Immortal Island? He pondered for a moment, shook his head, and said, "There's no need. There's still a long way to go. I don't believe that this brat will never show himself in the cultivation world. Please bid farewell to Sect Leader Phone on my behalf. I won't go down anymore." With that said, he flew away without looking back, disappearing into the distance in the blink of an eye. The few of them sent him off with their gazes before exchanging glances. All of them shook their heads and smiled bitterly. They then sized up the surroundings under the clear sky and bright sun. Such a bright and clear world was disturbed by Yu Qianqiu like this, and it seemed rather strange. "Let's go back." Osihai sighed as the few of them dived towards Fuxian Island. After returning to Penglai Pavilion, Osihai told Feng Xiangtian and others in detail what happened just now. Everyone was stunned and surprised. Qingnu, who had the cultivation of the final phase of nature's test, didn't catch Yu Qianqiu and let him run away. Guan Weiwu and Ferdinand looked at each other and secretly breathed a sigh of relief. In the main hall of the Wanfen Garden, Ma Jiugu, who was holding a walking stick, was standing in the middle of the hall with Lan Bingshu as support. She was looking at Hibiscus, who was sitting motionlessly on a chair. Tears were silently rolling down Hibiscus's beautiful face. Obviously, she was restrained. Lan Bingshu looked at the face that was even more beautiful than hers, and her expression was indescribable. After the banquet was over, Ferdinand angrily returned and greeted Ma Jiugu. "Jiugu, there was quite a commotion above supporting Immortal Island just now. What? Could it be that Qingnu, that old fellow, had made a move on Yu Qianqiu? What happened?" Ma Jiugu turned around and asked. Hibiscus, who couldn't move, looked at her father anxiously. "Yu Qianqiu, hey, that brat was a bit impulsive. At first, the sect leader didn't plan to do anything to him. He just wanted to put on a show in front of Qingnu, who knew that when he saw that his master didn't say anything to help him, he actually cut ties with Guan Weiwu in front of everyone. Their master-disciple relationship ended there. The sect leader was also angry and expelled him from the supporting Immortal Island in public. It's funny that Qingnu chased Yu Qianqiu to the outside of the supporting Immortal Island. In the end, with Qingnu's cultivation of the final phase of nature's test, she couldn't catch Yu Qianqiu and let him escape. I really don't know how that brat has such ability. It's really incredible." Ferdinand shook his head and smiled bitterly. "That old fellow, Qingnu, didn't catch Yu Qianqiu?" Ma Jiugu was stunned. Lan Bingxue was also shocked. Hearing this, Hibiscus, who had tears in her eyes, immediately relaxed. Her large eyes flickered. Others might not know, but she knew that Yu Qianqiu had the ability to appear and disappear unpredictably. It was normal that others couldn't catch him. He escaped, but from now on, he is no longer a disciple of supporting Immortal Island. Without the protection of supporting Immortal Island, the Luo sect and Ong Kwangsung will definitely not let him go. Sigh. Jiugu, why didn't you come forward to persuade the sect leader? I believe that if you had come forward, this matter wouldn't have escalated to this point, Ferdinand asked. I'm old and a little muddle-headed. I never interfere with the decisions of the supporting Immortal Island. Ma Jigu turned around and stared at Hibiscus and asked, I heard that your girl's face was cured by Yu Qianqiu. Yes. Ferdinand nodded and said, this disciple will not hide it from you. Yu Qianqiu went to the demon domain and got a lot of spirit grasses. He secretly hid them and didn't hand them over. Instead, he secretly refined a furnace of Rui Dan for Rong-er. Just like that, Rong-er's face was cured. Rui pill. Even Ma Jugu couldn't help but exclaim, "Is it the legendary Rui pill that can keep youthful, detoxify, nourish one's face, and make one immune to hundreds of poisons?" According to Yu Qianshou, it should be. You didn't see the appearance of the Rui pill at that time. Not only did it give off a pill halo, but it also emitted 7 colored rays of light. It was the first time in my life that I saw such a pill. It was an eye-opener. Ferdinand sighed. Hearing this, Lan Bingxue looked at Hibiscus with an envious expression. Which woman didn't want to stay youthful? Your girl is so lucky. Sigh. If I had encountered such a pill in the past, I wouldn't have gotten the name Ma Jugu. Last Lan, let's go. Let's not look at it, lest we get envious. Let's go. Let's go. Ma Jugu shook her head and sighed. She slowly walked out with Lan Bingxue's help. When Yu Qianshou was being chased by Qing Nu and was about to enter the cloud, he was scared out of his wits when he looked back. The other party actually teleported in front of him. As soon as he entered the cloud, he immediately flashed back to Utopia without saying anything. He didn't dare to be long-winded. A cultivator at the final stage of the Crossing Calamity stage was simply too terrifying for him. The reason why he disappeared into the cloud was that he didn't want to expose the secret that he could disappear into thin air. Who knew that he would almost be killed? After appearing in Bai Sujin's room in the Misty Palace, he finally felt safe. He breathed a sigh of relief and wiped the cold sweat on his forehead. Bai Sujin suddenly looked back. Seeing him like this, she walked up to him and asked with concern, "What's wrong?" "Damn it, I'm so unlucky today. I was just expelled from the Supporting Immortals Island, and now I'm being chased by a cultivator at the final stage of the Crossing Calamity stage by Ong Kwang-sung. Just a little bit more. If he had killed me before I could react, I might not have been able to come back. I was so scared," Yu Qianshou said in a relaxed manner after the fright. "You were expelled from the Supporting Immortals Island? Why would a cultivator from Ong Kwang-sung want to kill you? Is it because you helped me investigate the 4 treasures?" Bai Sujin grabbed his arm, especially when she saw the long hem of his robe. He was naked behind his buttocks, and his legs were exposed in front. Who knew what kind of danger he had encountered? Yu Qianshou gently pressed her hand and said with a smile, "Sister, don't think too much. It's not your fault. It's my fault." Bai Sujin, on the other hand, didn't think so. She only thought that he was comforting her. She bit her lips and said, "I can take my time with my matters. You must pay attention to your safety outside." In her heart, there was nothing more important than Yu Qianshou's safety. Yu Qianshou shook his head and smiled bitterly. "I'm afraid it's too late now. I believe it won't take long for the whole cultivation world to know that I was expelled from the Supporting Immortals Island. At that time, I'm afraid that the Daluo Sect and Ong Kwang-sung will cast their net to find me. It's not convenient for me to show myself in public for a while. Then you shouldn't go out during this period of time." Bai Sujin's peerless features gently lifted as she looked at him worriedly. Yu Qianshou was a little dazed. He had the urge to hug and kiss her. Just when he was thinking about it, his divine sense suddenly fluctuated. Someone was looking for him. Yu Qianshou was surprised and said, "It's news from the Pillar of General's office. Could it be that there's an improvement in the mission that I gave to little Tion? Sister, I have something to do. I'll go out for a while." As soon as he finished speaking, he took off his long robe and put it on. Then, he disappeared without a trace. Bai Sujin bent down to pick up the torn clothes on the ground and held them in her hands. Her pretty face was filled with worry. Chapter 216. The rear garden of the National Pillars Mansion had become a forbidden area. Actually, there was nothing they could do about it. At this time, there were many people in the rear garden. There were adults and children, and all of them were dressed shabbily. None of them were presentable, and they all looked at the surrounding courtyard with fear. No one dared to make sound, and there were probably more than 100 people. These people were brought here by Ling Feng and the others while they were cultivating in the capital. Nowadays, the 3 of them could be said to be living a comfortable life. They cultivated in peace and with the nourishment of spirit stones and spirit pills, their cultivation was rising rapidly. In the past, it was something they didn't even dare to think about. They didn't have to worry about food and drink, and there was no one to restrict them. They also had the money Sure Shoutian gave them to spend. Although they couldn't normally appear in the general's mansion, they would climb over the wall and stroll around the capital when they were free. The three of them did not dare to neglect the task that Yu Qianqiu had entrusted them with. The purpose of their stroll was to find people with spirit roots for cultivation. Sure Shoutian looked at the group of people in the rear garden and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. What kind of people did Ling Feng and the others bring here? Most of them looked like beggars, or they looked like they were in dire straits. Some of them had eaten their fill and were squatting in the shade of a tree, scratching lice. On the wall of the small courtyard, Ling Feng and the others sat side by side, while Sure Shoutian stood on it. The four of them looked at the group of people in the garden. Sure Shoutian smiled bitterly and said, "Ling Feng, did you bring all the beggars in the capital here?" Beizi looked up at him and smiled. "If the three of us really brought all the beggars in the capital here, even 10 of your general's mansions wouldn't be able to accommodate them, let alone this garden. We also want to bring some decent people for boss, but boss already told us to keep a low profile. If we brought so many ordinary people here, I'm afraid that the government would have long been alerted and people would have noticed. Look at these beggars and vagrants. They don't have families and they're all alone. Without them, no one in the capital would know." Sure Shoutian waved his finger and said, "But look, why did you bring even old men here? What does boss want them for?" "That's good. At least they won't starve to death on the streets." It was rare for Xian Ping to say such a long sentence. Ling Feng nodded and said, "Boss said that as long as they don't belong to any sect and have spiritual roots, regardless of age, the more the better. Sai, let's wait for the boss to get here first." Sure Shoutian shook his head and raised a small silver ball in his hand. He asked doubtfully, "I just used my divine sense to check inside and found that it's empty. Can this really summon boss? It should be possible. Otherwise, boss wouldn't have given this to us for no reason." Ling Feng said. Sure Shoutian looked at the silver ball in his hand and smiled bitterly. "I hope boss can take them away as soon as possible. Otherwise, there will be hundreds of people eating every day. What? Your Grand General's residence can't even support 100 people?" Yu Qianqiu suddenly appeared on top of the wall and laughed. "Boss!" The few of them turned around and exclaimed in surprise. After Sure Shoutian's joy, he smiled awkwardly and said, "Boss, that's not what I meant. It's just that my father is about to return to the imperial court. I'm afraid it will arouse my father's suspicion. I don't know how to explain it to him." Yu Qianqiu looked at the hundreds of people and nodded slightly. They were all people with spiritual roots. He didn't expect Ling Feng and the other two to be able to gather so many people in such a short period of time. However, he was stunned when he saw a few old people among them. "Let's talk inside." Yu Qianqiu directly entered the courtyard from the top of the wall. After the four of them entered the main hall, Yu Qianqiu sat on a chair in the main hall and asked curiously, "The pillar of the state general has been fighting at the borders for many years. Why is he suddenly returning to the imperial court?" Sure Shoutian smiled and said, "It's nothing. The Pingwood general has 2 beautiful daughters. The eldest is going to marry the current crown prince, and the second is going to marry the eldest son of the Waigwood general. My father, the Pingwood general, and the Waigwood general are the 3 great generals of the empire. Maybe it's because of this that my father has to come personally to congratulate them. An important official with an important official, an important official with the crown prince?" Yu Qianqiu's brows twitched. He seemed to feel that something wasn't right. He frowned and said, "Shoutian, among the 3 great generals of the empire, who has the greatest military power? It's not a matter of who has the greatest military power. The 3 great generals control 6 million soldiers and horses, and there isn't much of a difference in power. If we're talking about military power, I'm afraid it's still my father." Sure Shoutian said with a hint of pride. "Why?" Yu Qianqiu asked. Sure Shoutian raised his hand and gestured. "The south of the Huaxia Empire is a barren land that is rarely visited by humans. In the words of our cultivation world, it's called the demonic domain. The east side, Linhai, has always been guarded by the troops of the Wagwa General. The Pingwa General's troops are mainly guarding the capital region, as well as the northern border. My father, the pillar of the state general, is guarding the west. The east side, Linhai, has no neighbors. The south is barren, and although it's dangerous, there are no wars. Although there's a big country in the north, they're located in a bitter cold land. In terms of strength, they can't compare to our empire. Only the west that my father guards is not only vast, but it's also connected to the 6 countries. Ever since our empire was founded, the 6 countries have never stopped having conflicts, big or small. Think about it, boss. For so many years, the troops in the east, south, and north have been preparing for war all year round. On the other hand, the west that my father guards is always preparing for war. Therefore, among the 3 great generals of the empire, my father's troops are the strongest. Oh, so that's how it is. Yu Qianqiu had always been in the cultivation world, so he really didn't know much about these things. After a moment of silence, he asked again, "Then what about the defense of the west when your father returns to the capital? Isn't he worried at all?" "Huh, boss, you don't know." Sure, Xiao Tian laughed. Last year, the 6 countries attacked our empire together, instantly angering my father. My father immediately issued a death order. With a single command, his 2 million troops split into 6 groups and defeated the 6 countries one by one, causing them to suffer great losses. In the end, the 6 countries sued for peace. At the beginning of this year, they signed an inviolable treaty with our Xia Empire. That's why my father can return to the capital with peace of mind. As for the defense of the West, my father has already handed it over to my second brother. Second brother has grown up under my father's guidance. I believe that it won't be a problem for him to guard the West. Oh, that means that there's no war in the West for now? Yu Qianqiu asked. Sure, Xiao Tian laughed. The 6 countries have suffered great losses. Even if they want to cause trouble, it'll be impossible for them to do so in the next decade or so. Seeing the proud look on Shi Xiaoyan's face, Yu Qianqiu didn't ask him anything else. However, in his heart, he was grumbling. There was no war at the border, but the Shi family controlled the strongest troops of the Xia Empire. A single army was able to defeat the armies of the 6 countries at the same time. One could imagine the battle prowess of this army. Some people probably couldn't sit still anymore. Look, they even brought up the matter of an alliance marriage. Chapter 217. Ling Feng walked over and said, Boss Sai, Beizi, and Xin Ping found the people in the garden. Although they don't have much aptitude, they still have some spiritual roots. I wonder if they can be used? Yu Qianqiu came back to his senses and smiled. It's fine as long as they have spiritual roots. How can there be so many people with good aptitude? Those with good aptitude have already been taken away by the major sections. You guys won't even have the chance to find them. But why did you bring the old man here? Shi Xiaotian glanced at the 3 of them and laughed in his heart. Ling Feng was startled and said, Boss, didn't you say it's better to have more people regardless of age? Did I say that? Yu Qianqiu was stunned and immediately came to a realization. Oh, I think I did say that before. Forget it, it's better than nothing. We can bring them back to cultivate and they'll be stronger than ordinary people. With so many people, we'll be worried about our food supply. It's better to bring them back and not do anything else. We could be self-sufficient. By the way, little Tian, when you have time, help me gather some grains and seeds of all kinds of fruits and vegetables. I have great use for them. The 3 of them didn't know what he was going to do. Shi Xiaotian nodded and agreed. Yu Qianqiu instructed again. Ling Feng, Beizi, and Xin Ping continue to search for people with spiritual roots. I'll still say it. I'll take as many as you can regardless of age. It doesn't matter if your aptitude is lacking. I have a way to solve it. But remember, keep a low profile and don't let the other sects find out. I've been chased out of supporting Immortals Island. Many people want to kill me. This general's residence is my stronghold now. Don't let it be exposed. The 3 of them looked at each other, and Shi Xiaotian asked in surprise, Why were you chased out of supporting Immortals Island? My ass. Yu Qinshu stood up and patted Shi Xiaoyan's shoulder. He smiled and said, Xiao Tian, I've taken revenge for you and Ong Kwangsung. The head of Ong Kwangsung, Lu Chongqing, and his grandson, Lu Jingguang, were both killed by me. They were shocked again. Shi Xiaotian swallowed his saliva and said, Boss, you're not lying to me, right? You killed Sect Master Ong Kwangsung? How is this possible? Damn it. Do I look like a liar to you? Yu Qinshu sighed and said, AI, if I didn't kill him, would I have been expelled from the supporting Immortal Island? Sigh. The days of having someone to back him up were over. From now on, he would have to rely on himself. Everyone, keep a low profile. They were completely speechless, but they still didn't quite believe it. How could the Righteous Path's 6th-ranked sect leader, Ong Kwangsung, be killed so easily? It's good to be expelled from the sect. In the future, I can come here whenever I want. All right, Xiao Tian, give me a set of ordinary clothes. I can't wear the supporting Immortal Island's clothes anymore. I'll definitely get into trouble if I stroll around the capital. Yu Qinshu said. Shi Xiaoyan's eyes lit up. From Yu Qinshu's words, he could tell that Yu Qinshu was going to be here often. He immediately agreed happily and went out to find clothes for Yu Qinshu. Ling Feng and the other two were also overjoyed. As for Yu Qinshu, he flashed into the garden and stored the 100 or so people in the garden into Utopia. After giving some instructions to Guan Yu, Shi Xiaotian ran over excitedly with a set of clothes. He said, Boss, try this set of clothes to see if it suits you. This is my second brother's clothes. His figure seems to be about the same as yours. Yu Qinshu took a look and saw that the embroidered clothes, jade belt, and thick-soled boots were all prepared. He threw them back and snappily said, I just told you to keep a low profile. Why did you give me these clothes? Are you afraid that others won't notice me? He waved his hand and said, Just give me the clothes of your general residence's servants. Servants' clothes are for you to wear? Shi Xiaotian was stunned. Ling Feng and the other two felt a little uncomfortable looking at the silk robes they were wearing. Yu Qinshu frowned and said, Why are you so long-winded? If I say it's fine, it's fine. Left with no choice, Shi Xiaotian could only run back to get him a set of servants' clothes. When Yu Qinshu put on a slanted hat and adjusted his brand-new black clothes, he instantly revealed a satisfied smile and said, Not bad. Not bad. These clothes are really low profile. Xiaotian, from today onwards, I'll be your follower. I don't dare. Shi Xiaotian hurriedly waved his hand. He thought, if you become my follower, what if one day you're not happy? Where am I going to find spirit stones and spirit pills? Yu Qinshu waved his hand and said, Don't be long-winded. In front of others, I'll be your follower. Behind others, I'll still be your boss. That's settled. Ling Feng and the other two exchanged glances and said, Xiaotian, find us a set of servants' clothes too. Why? Is it fun to be a servant's follower? Yu Qinshu glared at them and said, Do you want to go to the capital's 10,000 flower house to be a pimp? The three looked at each other and didn't dare to say anything. After staying in the capital for so long, the three naturally knew what kind of place 10,000 flower house was. Xiaotian, speaking of 10,000 flower house, I've never been there before. Why don't you take me there now? Yu Qinshu tidied up the crooked hat on his head and sighed. At this time, he had already put away the storage bag and the sword on his back. To him, it didn't matter if these things were on display or not. If he wanted to take them out, it would only take a thought. The three looked at each other and didn't know if he was telling the truth or not. Looking at his serious expression, it didn't seem like he was joking. Sure, Xiaotian asked tentatively, Boss, you really want to go to 10,000 Flower House? Huh, that place is a lively place. Oh, lively? Yu Qinshu nodded his head seriously and said, I was just saying it casually. Since you want to go, as your follower, I naturally have to accompany you. AI, if you want to go, then hurry up. Let's go. Let's go. Don't waste time. The three were completely speechless. Yu Qinshu pushed Shi Xiaotian out in a hurry. As he walked, he didn't forget to look back and warn the three who followed him. What are you three doing here? Go do what you need to do. Pillar of State General's residence. Yu Qinshu had lived here for more than a year. so he was very familiar with the place. In a wealthy and powerful mansion, the two of them walked out of the back garden one after another. The servants who passed by saluted when they saw Sir Xiaotian, but when they saw the servant in new clothes behind him, they all felt that he was very unfamiliar. They all secretly muttered, "Why haven't I seen the third young master's servant before?" Sir Xiaotian walked confidently in front, while Yu Qianqiu followed behind with his hands behind his back. His aura wasn't any weaker than the former's, but it seemed that his awareness as a servant was a little lacking. When the two of them were about to pass the main hall, a beautiful woman walked out. The two women on her left and right were also quite good-looking. Behind them was a group of servant girls. Sir Xiaotian slowed down and said in a low voice, "You know my mother. The two beside her are my eldest sister-in-law and second sister-in-law. They married a few years ago, so you haven't seen them before." The two of them inevitably bumped into each other. Sir Xiaotian bowed and said, "Mother, eldest sister-in-law, second sister-in-law." The servants on the other side also bowed to Sir Xiaotian. Li Hongyang looked at her son lovingly. Her eyes inadvertently glanced at the servant behind her son and was slightly startled. Not only did this servant not bow to her, he actually stood there with his hands behind his back. Yu Qianqiu looked at her and nodded with a smile. When Li Hongyang saw who it was, she was immediately shocked. When the woman beside her saw Yu Qianqiu, she frowned and said, "Uncle, is this the new retainer? Why isn't he bowing to mother?" She immediately turned around and shouted, "Housekeeper, who brought this servant? Why doesn't he know the most basic manners of servants? Someone come, bring him to teach him the rules." Chapter 218. Hearing this, Yu Qianqiu was dumbfounded. Not only him, Li Hongyang and Sir Xiaotian were also dumbfounded. Not far away, a man in his 50s jogged over and repeatedly smiled apologetically at the woman. He shouted at Yu Qianqiu in a low voice, "Still not coming with me? Mr. Yu." The housekeeper was Sir Shunqing, a retainer of the general's office. He had met Yu Qianqiu many times in the past, so he was familiar with him. He more or less knew what kind of person Yu Qianqiu was. When he saw Yu Qianqiu's face clearly, he was dumbfounded. Close to 10 years had passed, and his own appearance had already aged. However, Yu Qianqiu still looked the same, just that his appearance had become more mature. He naturally recognized him with a single glance, and was immediately at a loss as to what to do. "Shunqing, this has nothing to do with you. Take all the servants away. I haven't seen my wife for many years, so we have something to talk about." Yu Qianqiu came back to his senses and smiled. He ordered the housekeeper to leave. Sir Shunqing nodded repeatedly. After getting Li Hongyang's permission, he took the group of servants away. Seeing that the housekeeper didn't listen to her, the woman was a little annoyed. She glared at him and said, "Does the general's office have any rules?" "Wan Sure, don't be rude." Li Hongyang stopped her. The other woman next to her quietly watched everything that happened just now. The servant in front of her was obviously not simple. How could a normal person order the housekeeper of the general's office? "Mother, these servants are getting more and more unruly. If you don't teach them a lesson, they will bully their master in the future. Mother is kind, so you can't be cruel. Why don't you let your wife discipline them instead?" The woman seemed to have lost a nerve in her head and was still chattering. The other woman had already pulled her a few times, but she still didn't notice. "Shut up." Li Hongyang also scolded her wife. In her impression, Yu Qianqiu was like a god. Back then, he just casually drew a path and trapped her eldest son for a few days. How could she offend him? "Damn it. If you continue to nag, I'll sell you to Africa." Yu Qianqiu was speechless when he met such a woman. He pointed at the woman's pretty face and asked Sir Xiaotian, "Xiaotian, is this your sister-in-law? Is it Sir Yotian's wife or Sir Yintian's?" Sir Xiaotian looked at him with a wry smile and thought to himself, "If you don't wear this servant's clothes, how could you have caused such trouble?" Li Hongyang took over the conversation and introduced awkwardly, "Mister, please don't be offended. This is Bao Wanshi, the wife of my eldest son, Yutan, and this is Sidu Hui, the wife of my second son, Yin Tian." "Bao Wanshi, Yu Qianqiu sized her up and laughed coldly. She doesn't live up to her name. Why did Yu Tian choose such a shrew? In my opinion, he should just divorce her. His words were not polite at all. The people at the side were speechless. Sure, Xiaodian really didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Bao Wancher was so angry that her face turned pale. She said with a trembling voice, Wah! She was so angry that she cried. Yu Qianqiu didn't have a good impression of shrewd-like women. What he said just now was to anger her. Seeing that she was crying, he immediately became interested in watching a good show. He jokingly said, Cry, continue to cry. It's too soft, louder. Bao Wancher did as he said and began to cry loudly. Her voice was really sharp, and she even made a lot of body movements. Sidu Hui, who was at the side, tried to comfort her, but it was useless. Li Hongyang felt a headache coming on. Sure Xiaodian quickly pulled Yu Qianqiu back and said, Boss, I'm begging you. Please be lenient with your words. She is my sister-in-law after all. Just give me some face, okay? Who made my wife cry? A voice that pretended to be angry was heard with a hint of laughter. Yu Qianqiu turned to look. A person walked out from the entrance. He wore a scholar's hat and a vermilion official's robe. Who else could it be but the Shi family's boss, Shi Yutian? However, he seemed much more mature than before, especially with the two small tufts of beard on his mouth. Wah! Bao Wancher acted as if she saw her savior. She wiped her tears and rushed into Shi Yotian's arms. She began to complain about all her grievances. Oof, there's such an evil servant. Wancher, don't cry. I'll teach him a lesson for you. Shi Yotian let go of his wife and walked over with large strides. Interesting. Yu Qianqiu couldn't help but clap his hands and laugh. He said, Shi Yotian, we haven't seen each other for so many years. I didn't think you'd become a flower protector. I'd like to see how you'll teach me a lesson. How dare you? After Shi Yotian saw the person's face clearly, the words he was about to shout got stuck in his throat. His face turned red. When he came to his senses, he hurriedly lifted the hem of his official robe and ran over to pay his respects. Yotian greets Mr. I haven't seen Mr. for many years. You've been well. No matter what their relationship was like in the past, meeting old friends was always a happy thing. Yu Qianqiu supported him and said with a smile, I don't live as well as you do, hugging your wife and flirting in public. TSK, what a simple life. Mister, you must be joking. Yotian only covets some romantic relationships. How can it compare to Mr.'s celestial life? After all these years, Mr. is still as elegant as ever. Yotian really envies you. He was speaking from the bottom of his heart. Back then, he painstakingly pursued the path of cultivation. In the end, the path was ethereal and he woke up from his dream. He finally gave up and settled down to marry a wife and focus on his career. However, he couldn't help but have a cultivation complex in his heart. He sighed to himself. His third wife was the one he was envious of. He often wanted to chat with his third wife, but it was difficult to see her leave the forbidden area of the back garden. At this moment, Bao Wancher was no longer crying. She was looking at her husband with her mouth wide open. No matter how stupid she was, she could sense that the servant in front of her was not ordinary. Shi Yutian waved at her and said, Wancher, come and greet Mr. Bao Wancher didn't know where to put her hands. She walked over gracefully and saluted with a flushed face. Bao Wancher greets Mr. I was reckless and offended Mr. just now. Please forgive me, Mr. Situ Hui, who was at the side, was very obedient. She didn't need to be reminded and came over to bow. Situ Hui greets Mr. Yu Qianqiu snorted coldly at Bao Wancher and ignored her. Instead, he raised his hand at Situ Hui, indicating that she didn't have to be so polite. He smiled and said, Are you Yin Tian's wife? I'm old acquaintances with your husband. Wife? Husband? This mister's words were a little rude. Situ Hui muttered to herself, but she nodded with a smile and retreated to the side. Shi Yutian saw that Yu Qianqiu was ignoring his wife's apology. He immediately gave his third brother a look, asking him to plead for leniency. Shi Xiaodian understood and walked over to pull Yu Qianqiu. He smiled and said, "Boss, my sister-in-law actually has a good heart. She's just a little outspoken. Don't bother with her." That's right, that's right. Shi Yutian walked over and said, "Yutian apologizes to Mr. on my wife's behalf. I hope that Mr. will forgive my wife this time for my third brother's sake." Actually, Yu Qianqiu wouldn't really bother with an ordinary person like her. However, women sometimes relied on their status and didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. In order to be less long-winded in the future, he couldn't help but scare her a little. He immediately pointed his finger and shouted, "Bao Wan Shi, I'll spare your life this time for the sake of the Shi brothers. If you dare to do this again, I'll definitely take your head. When that time comes, it'll be useless no matter who pleads for mercy. Hurry up and thank Mr." Shi Yutian tugged at his wife. Bao Wanshi felt very wronged. How could she be treated worse than an outsider in her own home? However, she still thanked him honestly. This matter was settled just like that. Bless the heavens. Yu Qianqiu patted his shoulder and sighed. "Xiao Tian and I are going to Wanhua brothel. Do you want to join us?" Sure. Xiao Tian almost vomited blood. He looked at his mother, who was glaring at him guiltily. Sita Hui's face was already red. Bao Wanshi's eyes were wide open. Shi Yutian kept smiling foolishly at Yu Qianqiu. This question was very difficult to answer. In fact, he really wanted to go out with Yu Qianqiu. It was not for the fans of Wanhua brothel, but purely for Yu Qianqiu. However, his wife, mother, and sister-in-law were all at the side. How was he supposed to answer? Yu Qianqiu joked, "Are you going or not? Why are you smiling foolishly? Give me an answer." Sure, Xiaoyan's expression twitched. "Boss, you just want to see the world in chaos. You're not allowed to go." Bao Wanshi opened her arms and stood in front of Shi Yutian. She glared at Yu Qianqiu and said, "Even if you kill me, I won't let him go to that place with you." Oh, I didn't know that she was a feminist. Yu Qianqiu chuckled and said, "Yu Tian, since your wife doesn't want you to go, then forget it. Xiao Tian, let's go." With that said, he walked straight out. Sure, Xiao Tian lowered his head and followed behind as if he was looking for ants. "Hey, Mr. Wait." Sure, Yu Tian was a little anxious. "If you dare to go, I'll fight it out with you." Bao Wanshi jumped onto Shi Yutian and hugged him tightly. She didn't care about her image anymore. Not far away, Yu Qianqiu's laughter could be heard. Situ Hui's eyes revealed a trace of curiosity. Who was this person? You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.